Good evening. I'd like to call this Concord Township Zoning Commission hearing meeting to order today, Tuesday, June 1st, 7 o'clock. First of all, I'd like to say it's really nice to see a lot of people in the audience today. Nice to see everybody back. It's nice. Used to talking to an empty room for the last year. So we have a very full agenda this evening, and we need to get to business here. First, I'd like to start under the old business. Mr. Lucas, you have some information for us under old business?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. This matter has been recessed for some time regarding the zoning amendment application number 03201 for Ryland Inc. I received communication by the legal counsel for Ryland Inc., specifically Jordan Burns, who has requested that the request be withdrawn and as a correspondingly then be permanently tabled.
Okay.
I also did a follow-up email to him confirming that I would advise the zoning commission tonight of the desire by his client Ryland Inc. To withdraw the zoning amendment application, and correspondingly, if I was incorrect, he should contact me before the meeting. He's not contacted me, so we should proceed forward with the permanently tabling of this item.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I so move that we remove the application 0320-1 by Ryland Inc.
We have a motion made.
I'll second.
Seconded by Ashley. I think we can just do a voice roll. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Not opposed. Let the record reflect was all in favor with ayes, no opposed, no abstentions. That item is taken care of. Under old business, we'd also like to do the approval of the minutes of the April 6th meeting. We were provided those in the most recent package. Hiram Reppert, Andy Lingenfelder, Richard Peterson, Frank Schindler, and Rich Iaphilis were the members that were present. So I'll entertain a motion for the April 6th meeting transcript.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of April 6th, meeting to 2021 for Concord Township Zoning Commission as written.
Okay. Second?
I second.
Mr. Schindler seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, so let the record reflect we have 3 ayes, 1 abstention. So that motion carries. Okay, that takes care of old business. Under new business, we have a public hearing for zoning amendments to the Concord Township zoning resolution as initiated by the Zoning Commission. I would like to formally open up that public hearing. Under amendment number 1, we will deal with section 5.02 definitions, which modifies existing definitions for microbrewery, microdistillery, and changes to the existing term urban winery to micro winery, adds new definition to brewery, distillery, or winery. Since there's no applicant for this, we can discuss this on the board. Heather, would you like to give us a kind of an overall review of what we have in front of us this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The township was initially approached by a commercial entity that was potentially looking at bringing an establishment that might fall under one of these definitions. So we started doing a review of our definitions and specifically the capacity limitations that we had within our definitions, and took a look at what some other communities in Northeast Ohio had and throughout the state. So the changes that we're proposing for the definitions of that you mentioned would increase the potential distilling capacity for micro distilleries, and then also we looked at adding some of these distilleries to to some of the other zoning districts within the township, specifically the RD2. So, and I think this kind of go along with amendments 2 and 3. So we kind of cleaned up some of the other conditions that were applicable to these conditional uses as well.
Okay. Since this is a public hearing, is there anybody here that would like to speak to the amendment number 1 on the definitions? Don't all rush up at once. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there are a couple people on the phone. I'm not sure if you want to check to see if,
Yes, if there are some phone participants, is there anybody that would like to weigh in on the amendment number 1 with regards to the definitions? Not hearing anything there either. Counselor, would it be best that we address these and vote on each amendment as they are presented, or should we go through all 3 and then
I would go through all 3,
go through all 3?
and then you're going to have separate motions.
Separate motions for each amendment?
Right. You're also going to have to ask if anyone wants to speak against amendment number 1.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to, since there's no discussion, is there any discussion on the board at this point on amendment number 1?
I would like to mention that the Planning Commission looked at this and they came back and said everything's okay, except you should add a definition for the big ones, the big brewery, distillery, and winery, which you did, Heather, right? If I'm not mistaken, you added that?
there was a definition proposed that cross-referenced the other definitions.
Okay,
Stating that if it exceeded those maximum capacities, that it would fall under that.
okay. That's the only thing Planning Commission had.
Okay. Duly noted. Ashley, any comments? Frank, any comments on amendment number 1? Okay, we'll move on to amendment number 2.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
did you ask if anyone wanted to speak against amendment number 1?
I asked if anybody had any comments one way or the other.
Oh, okay. All right, I think just so we're on the same page, we should ask if anyone wants to speak for and segregate anyone who wants to speak against them.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go back to amendment number 1. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for amendment number 1? No? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak against amendment number 1? Anybody on the phone that would like to speak for amendment number 1? Anybody participating on the phone that would like to speak against amendment number 1? Okay. Let the record reflect that there were no one interested, no parties interested in speaking for or against from the public. Okay, we'll move on to amendment number 2, which is regarding section 13.35, microbrewery, microdistillery, or urban winery. Includes specific conditions for said uses and amends the conditions to include provisions requiring uses to operate in accordance with Ohio Division of Liquor Control and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms requirements, to hold current licenses, to file and provide reports demonstrating annual production has not exceeded the limit if requested, to prohibit outdoor storage, and to prohibit emission of odorous materials or matter or smells that would produce a public nuisance or hazard. Any Heather, would you like to kind of reflect, review that for us?
Yes, I think that the description of what the amendment is about pretty much kind of covered it, but just a little bit of cleanup items here as we were already tweaking the definitions. So we added some additional conditions specific to these uses.
Okay. Any discussion amongst the board?
None here.
Ashley? Frank? Nothing? Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for amendment number 2 on microbrewery, microdistillery, or urban winery? Is there anybody here that would like to speak against amendment number 2? Are there any participants on the phone that would like to speak for amendment number 2? Or against amendment number 2? Okay. We will move on to amendment number 3. Section 22.03, Table of Uses, adds brewery, distillery, or winery as permitted uses in the RD2 Research and Limited Industrial District. Heather, would you like to review anything you want to think?
Yeah, I think the thought behind that, Mr. Chairman, if you recall, is if we had a microbrewery or distillery and they became successful, we would want them to be able to grow within Concord. So by allowing that as a more of a manufacturing type use without the restaurant or tasting room component, that they could be located down in our industrial park.
Correct. Any discussion on the board? Hiram?
None here?
Ashley? Frank?
None.
Nothing? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak for amendment number 3, Table of Uses? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak against amendment number 3, Table of Uses? Okay. Is there anybody on the phone that would like to speak for or against amendment number 3? Not hearing anything? I don't have any comments. Any other comments from the board at this point?
None here?
I would just like to make a comment. I just don't want the public to think we're just running through this. You have to understand, we spent many weeks on this thing, and it's all been incorporated with the changes and recommendations from various sources that we use. So the reason we don't hear comments from us tonight is because we went through this whole thing. And we assume the public had a chance to look at this and see everything, so that's why we're asking the public to participate now. And since we're not getting any comments, fine with us. I just want you people to know we're not rubber stamping it, okay? Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on amendments number 1, 2, and 3.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we close the public hearing on amendment number 1, 2, and 3 to the, let's see, Concord Township zoning resolutions.
Thank you. Got that right. I have a motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Ashley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Let the record reflect we had 4 ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Okay, so the public hearing on amendments number 1, 2, and 3 for the zoning text amendments is closed. At this point, I would be willing to entertain any additional comments. If we don't have any, then I would look for a motion to approve. Must be a motion in the affirmative.
And we're doing each one as a
Yes.
separate motion?
Yes, each one is a separate motion, each one has a separate vote. And we'll do a roll call vote for each amendment.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 1 with respect to section 5.02 definitions.
Okay, have a motion made.
I'll second.
Ashley is seconded. Okay, Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Reppert,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Ms. Garkar,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Okay, that's 4 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Amendment number 1 has been approved. Okay, at this point now, I will entertain a motion for amendment number 2.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 2 concerning section 13.35 microbrewery, microdistillery, or urban winery.
Okay, have a motion made.
I'll second.
Ashley seconds. Heather, roll.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Reppert,
Yes.
Ms. Garkar,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. That's 4 ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Motion carries. We're moving on to amendment number 3. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make it a trifecta.
Good for you.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 3, section 2203, table of uses.
Okay, have a motion made.
I'll second.
Ashley seconds. Heather, will you call the roll?
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Ms. Garhart,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes, that's 4 ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Motion carries. So amendments number 1, number 2, and number 3 have been successfully included into the zoning text moving forward. Thank you for all the hard work on this, Heather. This was a lot of work.
Yes.
Put a lot of time on this, and it's nice that we
A lot of
finally have it
research.
resolved. Good work.
Well, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we will forward your recommendation to the Board of Trustees,
Right,
who
right.
then will have their public hearing
Correct.
on the matter.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to what I think everybody is here for.
I think so.
The second item on the agenda is a zoning amendment application number 2021-1 by ALM Lake Properties LLC requesting a zoning resolution map amendment and preliminary plan approval from the current zoning district of R1 residential to R2 residential conservation development for the following properties. 10090 Hoos Road, concurrent parcel number 10-A-C-C-00-55-0, owned by Shirley A. Loxterman. Hoos Road rear, current parcel number 10-A-026-C-00-051-0, owned by Shirley A. Loxterman. 100 Hoos Road, current parcel number 10-A-026-C-00-062-0, owned by Shirley A. Loxterman. Morley Concord, current parcel number 08-A-026-0-00-075-0, owned by William H. Loxterman, trustee. 7574 Morley Road, current parcel number 08-A-026-0-00-003-0, owned by Jerry V. Patriarca. 7554 Morley Road, current parcel number 08-A-026-0-00-022-0, owned by Jerry V. and Constance M. Patriarca, and a portion of 0 Isley Square Concord, current parcel number 08-A-026-0-00-056-0, owned by Humanitarian Consulting Limited. Okay, at this point, I would like to open the public hearing, and I would like to have the applicant come forward, please. As you know, we have a public hearing requested by you and scheduled today. We are at a deficit from a current zoning, full zoning commission. We have 4 members present, 2 are absent. One of the absence is being fulfilled by our alternate. Thank you. And so that leaves us 1 zoning commission member shy. That's Mr. Ifelice. And Mr. Ifelice did give us some comments with regards to the zoning amendment that's in front of us this evening in the public hearing. However, because he's not present, his comments can only be entered into the record. They cannot be used as any voting mechanism for the proposal that's in front of us this evening. Because we are shorthanded, it is your option. You can ask a request to recess this evening's public hearing until our next regularly scheduled meeting, which would allow you to be in front of a full zoning commission at that time. If you choose to move forward this evening, we will go with the 4 members that are present, and you will need 3 affirmative votes out of the 4 in order for your proposal to pass. So I just want you to be aware of what the circumstances are if we move forward this evening.
Okay.
If you want to recess, you can do that. That's your request. This is your meeting. This is your ability to do so. So you can either move, you can approve to move forward this evening, which we will go through the normal public hearing. We'll have comments from the public. We'll have our hearing. We'll have our vote, and you'll need 3 out of 4 ayes in order to be able to have your amendment, your proposal pass. Okay. So it's up to you. What would you like to do?
Since this is just brought upon me right now,
I know.
I'd like to actually confer with some
And that's,
people from our...
you're more than welcome to do that. You can go ahead and confer, and then if you want to move forward, then what I would ask you to do is come back in front of us, and I'll ask you to put your proposal out in front of us, okay?
Okay.
So take whatever time you need and let us know what you want to do.
Okay.
I mean, are you clear on what's going on?
So we need 3 of the 4.
You're going to need 3 of the 4
Either
this
3 or
evening,
the
or you
5.
can recess until you have a full zoning commission in front of you, at which point you would need 3 out of 5.
Right, let's say, just for instance, and we have a question. If you were to vote negatively, let's say that occurred, would it still then go to the trustees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, regardless of what happens here this evening, it's still going to go to the trustees for a public hearing
I would certainly
when we're
agree.
done. Correct. Yep.
Are we doing anything with 1333 outside dining tonight?
Are we on the record now?
No, we're still on the record.
Then how do we need to speak on this?
Are we doing section 1333 amendment 1 outside dining?
That wasn't scheduled for hearing
That
yet.
was not scheduled
We didn't
for a
schedule
public
that yet.
hearing. Right,
Yes.
okay.
So we're all set to go for next month?
If you guys choose to set that tonight
Yeah,
for
we
the
have
next
a
meeting
work
date.
session
Yeah,
continued.
yeah.
Okay, if I could have a moment, please. What I'd like to do is I'd like to address the audience that's here this evening. I understand why you're here, and we certainly appreciate you coming, and we will give everybody the opportunity to come up and voice their opinions on the hearing that's in front of us this evening. I would like to set a couple of ground rules for this evening's hearing. I would like, this is a public hearing. I would like everybody to conduct themselves in an adult-like fashion. I don't want any cheering, any clapping, any foot stomping, any rooting on of what's being said. If somebody comes up and says what you were going to say, then you're more than welcome to come up and say, my comments reflect, the person that just spoke in front of me. That happens. You have a kind of a speech that you're ready to make, and somebody else comes up and steals your thunder. That's kind of the way it works. And if that happens, you don't have to repeat everything, but you're more than welcome to say whatever you like. It's all I do is ask that we keep everything. You direct all of your comments to the zoning commission. We don't direct any comments to the applicant or any of the people in the audience. Make sure you're reflecting all of your comments towards the zoning commission, and just please keep a level of decorum that's expected in a public hearing, and I think everything will go on just fine. So we appreciate your cooperation on that. Okay. Sure.
Oh, okay.
What would you like to do?
Yeah, we'll proceed.
Okay, you're going to proceed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone's
All right.
here, we might as well proceed.
Okay, that's your choice.
Yep.
I just want to make sure you understand it's your ability to do what you like to do here. You're the
Thank-
applicant. You have
okay.
the opportunity to make that decision.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, what I'd like to do is I'd like to formally open the public hearing, and you are the applicant, so I would like you to speak your name and address for the record, and then please give us your presentation.
Okay. Jeffrey Small, 7992 Stillwater Court, Concord Township, Ohio.
Okay?
Okay, so I'd like to thank the commission chair and the members that could make the meeting, and I'd like to thank you for considering our application and your time. Okay, so we are requesting a zoning change from R1 residential to R2 RCD as recommended by the township's 2004 comprehensive plan and allowed by Concord Township's zoning code. Based on our preliminary application meeting in February with the Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees, we took the comments and questions and made several adjustments to our plans. In formulating our 55 lot yield plan, we followed RCD code 16.24A and 16.28, which is to create a conceptual plan not involving significant engineering costs, which demonstrates the proposed street layouts with a reasonable and marketable number of lots that could be developed under the existing zoning district. Under the current R1 zoning, there would be 0% open space requirement, and most, if not all, the trees on the property could be cut down. A lot of the sensitive conservative spaces would not be protected, which none of us would like to see. Under the RCD code 16.24B, a density bonus is allowed based on the percentage of open space. We are proposing 30% open space, thus would be allowed a density increase of 4 lots. We believe the 55 lot RCD plan, which will be an active adult community, preserves 30% of the open space and is the best development plan for this site and community. The open space protects some of the most sensitive areas on the site and provides buffers for the adjacent neighbors. Per Lake County Planning Commission letter dated May 26, 2021, they recommend rezoning the property to the R2 RCD district. The letter stated, "It is believed the property in question would be better developed as an RCD rather than conventional R1 zoning district in order to preserve open space and sensitive areas." Following the township's comprehensive plan from 2004. Our RCD plan for Lake County Planning Commission conforms to the subdivision regulations. There are a few items that need to be addressed, but we will address all items to comply with the subdivision regulations. The traffic from this RCD development will generate approximately 50% less traffic due to lower population density than the current zoning, and even less percentage of traffic during peak hours due to different time travel patterns of residents. The residents from this development will enter and exit using the new intersection of Canterwood Trail and Goose Road due to the proximity of their homes to this new intersection onto Hoos. We will also have a natural walking trail from sublots 57 through 59 to Canterwood Trail to make sure they are part of the community. In order for there to be a smooth transition in housing on Canterwood Trail from Hobby Horse, sublots 23 through 25, we made wider lots to accommodate bigger houses with deeper setbacks. The homes on these lots will be of the traditional single-family variety. All common and open space will be privately held and maintained by the HOA. A couple of the other items for the cemetery. The trustees need to pass a resolution for removal of the cemetery. Maybe Mr. Mike Lucas could shed some light on this, on the progress of that status.
Yeah, I can. The township, under the discretion, is determined they do not want to be involved in the removal of the cemetery interment in that. So it's going to have to be a private matter in accordance with Ohio law. But at this point in time, the Board of Trustees is not going to authorize the resolution necessary at their discretion under the statute to remove the disinterred bodies in that. So.
In regards to the street lighting, we would look to have minimal street lighting since it will be necessary for the residents of the community so they can walk safely to the clubhouse. I would like to introduce my traffic trip analysis versus showing the single-family traffic patterns versus active adult community. I'd also like to present a letter from our soils engineer showing the steps that we'd have to take to make the areas that are near the pond areas buildable lots. And then also I'd like to present a petition that we started like last week. We got 73 signed petitions in favor of our development. and rezone. Some of them couldn't make it, so we just say, hey, a lot of people called and said, we like the lots, we like your plan, we're interested, and they just couldn't make the meeting, so we said, hey, maybe just sign a petition showing your support for our community. So I'd like to present all of those. Do you want me to?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's okay.
Do you have an extra,
Yeah.
or is that your only?
Might get it.
I can get one from you.
I might have an extra copy.
It's okay,
Yeah, I gotta get one of those.
so I can have it for the record.
So at this time, I'd like to bring up our wetlands consultant, Eric Flickinger, to talk about the wetlands and answer any questions on that arena, that area. And then after that, our engineer, Brian Eulenbrock from Neff and Associates, I'd like to bring him up here to talk about the engineering for the plans and any questions that you have on the engineering aspects of either plan.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I could come back and answer any
Yes.
questions.
And then once public comment has been made, you'll have an opportunity to respond.
Okay,
Okay?
great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Andy, can you ask something?
Pardon me?
Can you ask whoever's on the phone?
I just muted.
Oh, okay. Yes, could we have the person or people that are on the phone, could we please ask you to mute your computer or your audio component? We're getting some feedback. We're getting a lot of noise coming out of the phone. So if you could be so kind as just mute yourself until it's time to speak, that would be appreciated. Thank you. All right.
Hi,
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Eric A. Flickinger. My address is 2063 Williamston Court. That's Akron, Ohio, 44313.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to go on a record real quick by saying, I appreciate this as gentlemen and ladies. That is a very kind presumption for the doors on your bathrooms here. You know, I just wanted to let everybody know that. You don't get that kind of assumption anymore. I'm the wetlands consultant. I've mapped out all the areas that are wetlands on the property. I've submitted to the Corps of Engineers. We've received what's called a PJD, which is a preliminary jurisdictional determination. This allows them to take, oh, I'm sorry, it was an approved JD because some of the wetlands are isolated. So I have it here. I mean, as far as permitting is concerned, we just have to go through Ohio EPA for any wetlands we need to disturb. The critical thing will be mitigation. I would like to recommend maybe the portion of the property along Morley Road be set aside, maybe put a conservation easement on it. I'm not, that's preliminary. But I'd like to see some preservation of the remaining wetlands on the site. And they will continue to be fed because water tends to flow from the east to the west on this property. And the placement of the development won't be interrupting that flow. So we would be all right with minor impacts to the periphery of some of those areas. If anybody has any questions, I'm here.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Aaron?
Yes.
Okay.
Number one, I question how you can say in your project summary here that you are not infringing woods, wetlands, streams, riparian corridors, and natural draining area. We have two natural ponds there, and if I'm looking at the overall preliminary plan, I see here that building lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 are gonna be on fill.
Well, that would be an answer for an engineer. I'm not an engineer.
Okay?
But I would assure you, I worked for one through college, Messmore Timmerman down in Akron. And I know that you have to engineer those fills, but once they're properly engineered and done correctly, they should be fine.
Do you have any requirement to tell the builder or the owner of that lot that he is being built on a filled-in pond?
I should think that should be.
I sure would hope so. And
That is not my decision to make. I am not marketing the property. I am not selling the property. I was hired to map out the wetlands, secured whatever we needed from the Corps of Engineers, which I have done.
Okay, and then also, what did I say here? The stormwater management in the northeast corner of the lot, I think it's too small for the number of houses that it serves.
Has it been engineered?
Has it-
Calculated, and the volume calculated and the outflow calculated. Whether or not you think it's too small, the fact of the matter would remain that it would be sized correctly if it was engineered correctly.
Sure looks pretty small to me.
I can answer some of those questions.
Okay, well, you'll get your turn. Okay, I appreciate your comments, but we want to do one at a time and make sure we cover everybody, make sure that the transcriptionist can get everybody's comments for the record. Thank you. But you will have an opportunity to respond to that.
Now, do you have anything to do with the soil map?
Soil survey?
Yeah, by Century Construction, LLC.
Let me. I don't know what specifically you're referring to. May I see an exhibit, please? If it's the soils map that was in our wetlands delineation report, or the soils map prepared by USDA or NRCS, then I'm familiar with that. I'm not familiar with any other soils map which may have been done.
Well, the soils map that's in your package.
Okay.
Okay? It appears to me that it's incorrect. It does not include the second pond. So
That's irrelevant.
No, it's not. It's a major issue.
No, it's an exhibit in a wetlands delineation report showing the soils around the site. And you can see the soils, whether they're immediately on the marked lots or not. If there was an error in laying out that little line, I apologize for that, but everything is on that map. I didn't prepare that. That map was prepared.
I realize that. I realize that.
So you're picking at a typographical error.
Well, to me, that's a rather significant one when you're looking at the soils that are affected here on this area, and they did not include one of the major contributors.
Is that area still shown on that map?
Oh, it's shown, but it's
Okay.
It's outside the red line.
Well, you know what? I think maybe the red line was moved after the fact, after we did that report.
Well, then we ought to revise the report.
Well, if you'd like, give me your email address. I'll revise it and I'll send it to you.
You'll send it to
I'd be happy to, with a special little message for you.
Okay. I have some other comments with respect to in the pond. Lot number 20. No, wait, which lot? Slope and wetland. I don't know if we're talking. Lot number 20, where'd it go?
It's the yellow one.
Yeah, lot number 20 is, I don't know if it's buildable or not because it's on a rather steep slope and it's in the wetland. And,
Again, I would imagine there would be an engineered fill at that location.
yeah. Okay. I think that's all I have for you.
Anybody else?
Any questions, Ashley? Frank?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. All right, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
your
much.
presentation. Okay, who was next to speak on the applicant's behalf? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Brian Eulenbrock. I'm with Neffen Associates, 6405 York Road in Parma Heights.
Okay.
And my role in this project, I'm the planner. Neffen Associates is a engineering firm, civil engineering firm. So we'll end up doing the full civil engineering plans after the preliminary process. I'm usually involved in the beginning of the project, laying the lots out, working with our engineers to do the preliminary engineering for it, making sure that the project works, and then once we get approval, then we move it into the engineer phases. One of the things that we did receive are some comments from the township zoning, and then there's also some from the county as well. Reading through all those comments, kind of went through them. We've addressed them preliminary. We'll formally address them a little later after the meeting. There's a lot of comments on there that are just kind of more just text type stuff. So I don't want to bore you with all the details on that. There's a few of them that I just kind of want to run through, just kind of give an idea of what they're asking for and how we plan on addressing them. And are you able to get the plan up on this, on the monitor up here? Oh, there you go. Excellent. So what you see on the screen is the Rcd plan that's being proposed. So the green areas are the open space areas. The different colored boxes are different size units. On the plan, there is Goose Road is on the north side. Morley Road is on the east side. Kind of get your bearings. So the one of the comments on there was in reference to Wetland D. Wetland D is on the very kind of south. Let's see if I can point to that. I can point on your next. So Wetland D is on the south end here, and we kind of talked about potential encroachments into the setbacks. One of the things I wanted to point out on the site is there's 2.21 acres of wetlands on the site. We are currently proposing to disturb 0.18 acres, which that would be preservation of 90% of the wetlands on site, which is the purpose of the RCD code. And so we're putting those in open space, planning on preserving them, for perpetuality. So there is the lot that was in question was in this area, and one of the things that we've been considering doing on for this lot is adding just a little sliver of wetland disturbance on just this one lot. One of the things I don't like to do early is ask for a lot of wetland disturbance up front, and then like for the preliminary stage, and then turn around and find out that we actually really don't need it, because what ends up happening in the long run is they end up getting disturbed anyway because they're already permitted. So I try and be conservative on that approach. If we end up doing the final engineering on this and find out we need a little bit more grading, then we would update our permit to ask for that little bit of disturbance on that wetland. So then what you see here on the next plan, one of the comments, there's a lot of comments that had, they were kind of more final engineering type comments. So they're asking for detailed grading for all the units, and some other kind of items like that. So what you see here is part of that package that we submitted. And this is a preliminary grading plan that we do. It's kind of what we call an earthwork grading. And that just kind of gives us an idea of, is the site balance? Are we going to be able to make the lots work? So it lays out the roadways, grades the roadways. And so that's basically what this plan is showing. When we get final approval, we get into the final engineering, we end up addressing those detailed comments that they're asking for grading of all the individual lots. But what this plan shows is that we can make this work the way it's currently proposed. What's on the screen now is the yield plan, and as part of the code, in order to determine the yield for the RCD, we have to do a layout that determines what how many units we can place on the site with the current zoning in place. And Jeff kind of touched on that a little bit. The zoning code has some bonuses that come into play with the amount of open space that you are proposing. So this is the yield plan. There's a couple of comments on the yield plan. One of them was there's some dimensions on the plan that didn't match our overall legal description boundary. And so we kind of looked into that before the meeting just to make sure that we're good with everything. And we're only talking about less than a foot on the dimensions. And what we found is when a CAD technician drew this up, they snapped to the wrong line. And so it kind of made the dimensions just a little bit different. But with that said, that doesn't affect the areas, the widths for these lots, so they still meet the R1 code. Another one of the comments was the buildability of the lots along this stretch here, which is in the southeast corner. And so what we did to kind of show how those lots would be built if this site plan was constructed. So what you see in the top left corner is an enlargement of that site plan. The yellow boxes represent houses. The wetland is wetland D, I think it is down in this corner here. The red area is what we're proposing for some wetland disturbance in order to get the grading in that we need. And so what we did is we took a cross section through that. What you see in this cross section is this would be the proposed roadway. We'd slip up to a house. This is representing a house, 2 stories with what we call a walkout basement, patio area. And we slip down 3 to 1, which is a reasonable slope to mow in. And we meet back to grade right around the middle of where we're showing some wetland disturbance. So that leaves us a little bit more space, a little bit of buffer room between where we're proposing that disturbance to occur. So this is not extreme. It's not totally out of the ordinary. We've had worse conditions than this. So it just kind of shows that those lots would be buildable and marketable. Another one of the comments that was included in the township zoning review was for the proposed clubhouse. The pool is required to be 30 feet from property lines and adjacent buildings. And so what we want to do is just kind of prepare a slide kind of showing that is the case. We have, this would be the clubhouse, this is the proposed pool, this would be the proposed property line. We have 30 feet from the eastern property line, 40 feet from the south property line. And I do want to point out that this is a preliminary plan for the clubhouse. It's conceptual. Everything would need to be reviewed during final engineering to make sure that all the zoning code applies. But this shows that we can make this work. And so one of the discussions that usually come up in meetings like this is where does the water drain? How are we addressing stormwater management? This plan is kind of hard to read. It's a little bit probably too technical than what I want it to be. But what it's showing is a proposed development. What you see in red outlines are drainage areas. So there's a line here that's drainage area for this wetland. So everything that rain that falls in this kind of drains down into this wetland. There is a small drainage area here that ends up flowing into another drainage area. There's an existing pond that you're referring to, which is located here. So that's the drainage area for this pond. And then there's a drainage area that kind of goes through a culvert and across the culvert and kind of intersects another drainage area. There's another pond right here, and that's the drainage area for that pond. And then all of this eventually ends up into the wetland in the west side of the site. There's a 24-inch culvert that goes underneath a berm, and then there's a swale that goes through another pond, and it eventually ends up off-site. So as part of the design, the engineering for this, we will have to meet all county requirements for stormwater management. They'll do a thorough review of this. Our pre and post runoff cannot exceed. So the runoff that's occurring today will not increase after the development. There's a lot of talk about filling the ponds, and yes, there is proposal to fill these ponds. There has been some preliminary discussions with geotechnical engineers, and I think that one of the letters was provided. Did you provide that? Yeah, one of the letters was provided, and it basically kind of says, like, in a case like this is how we address it. And in order to fill a pond like this, you got to drain the pond, you got to pull out all the bad material, proof roll it, make sure the soil's good, and then you got to fill in lifts to make sure that soil is stable, so it creates a good foundation for that building when it is built. And it's in everybody's best interest to have the geotechnical engineer on site to observe the fills as they're being placed. And it's not uncommon to fill 20, 30 feet on some projects. So filling this this pond and it's not an extreme condition by any means. But is something that will definitely need to be paid attention to as the project is constructed. What you see here in the northwest corner are two proposed detention basins. We have a couple of detention basins in the back here, and in the back here is kind of placeholders. We don't know if we're going to need them yet until we get into final engineering, but we want to make sure we included those in because as part of the code, we can't include stormwater management basins in our open space areas. And so we want to make sure that we are accounting for that in case we need to do some small water quality basins in order to treat rear yards. Depending on the reviewer and the municipality that's reviewing the plans, they kind of treat rear yards a little bit differently. So we want to make sure that we have everything accounted for as part of that. I did mention the open space. One of the comments that I forgot to mention before is, we get back to the RCD plan here. There's a comment about the open spaces not meeting the 25-foot width requirement. So as part of the code, in order for it to be counted as open space, it's got to be at least 25 foot wide. And so, so the areas that they're talking about are, we have a small strip in here, small strip around the backside here, and this is a small strip here. And those are the areas between what we're showing as the stormwater management basin and the property lines or the right-of-way. And in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have shown it that way. We probably should just combine what would end up being a stormwater management easement and have that be adjacent to the back property lines and the right-of-way, eliminate that open space so we don't have that narrow strip of open space, and then just make the areas around it larger to compensate for those small strips that we were currently counting as open space. So we'll make that update as part of the final design and still show our open space percentage. Preliminary looking at it, I think we'll still be able to make that percentage that we were originally proposing.
That would be my question. With the, if your intention is to eliminate those narrow strips of open space in your calculation, would that have an adverse impact on the overall project from a percentage standpoint?
Yes, and that's a great question. And it won't, because what we're going to do is kind of reconfigure how we do it. So instead of the wetland being kind of offset from the, kind of pushed away from the, did I say the wetland? The stormwater management basin. So instead of the stormwater management basin being offset from the right-of-way and from the property lines, we'll kind of tuck it up a little bit tighter to them. And then that movement will pick up open space adjacent to it. So we're it's basically taking that open space and kind of moving it around. And one comment on that is one of the things that is challenging with this type of code. It's a great code and it has a lot of potential. But to pick out, what always scares me is to pick out that detention area, that stormwater management area in the preliminary design stage, because there's a lot of engineering that needs to happen like after the preliminary design stages to size the basins. When we've done some of that, we've done the preliminary calculations, but if you have to move like a basin line like a few feet here and there, it's like a snowball effect. So what we've done is we kind of we're being a little bit conservative on the size that we're showing, just knowing that as we get into final engineering that there's some tweaks that need to be made, or that could potentially need to be made. So
Could you go back to your drainage
sure.
slide?
Yes.
The houses on the north side of Cambridge Court, where do they drain?
So the north side of Cambridge Court, is that, am I in the right area here?
Go into the cul-de-sac. To the
Cul-de-sac.
right cul-de-sac.
Yes,
North side of the cul-de-sac.
on the north side, so these areas in here?
North.
That's
North.
south.
Your
That would be south. So the north side would be on the other side.
So that,
Your lots 51 through 40.
Yeah, it would be lots 51 through
41, 40.
40-ish.
let me look at my numbers here.
Yep.
So, okay, so you're talking about the north side of our cul-de-sac. You're talking about
Cambridge Court.
Yes.
Yeah, got it. I apologize.
It's okay.
I need to know my street names. All right, so you're talking about up here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so right now there's a small drainage area that that comes along here and existing, and I'm pretty sure this kind of drains up this way currently. You see the red line runs along here. All of this goes that way. So what we're going to be doing when we put the houses in, we actually have to account for like all of our stormwater. So we got to pick it up and put it through the basin. So we're actually going to pick up some of this drainage area and put it into our storm sewers and send it to the basins down here. So what we have to do in order to do that is actually makes our basin a little bit bigger because we got to overcompensate since we're sending, like I said earlier on, I can't release any more water, stormwater from here, so I got to hold back even more. But because we're taking this little small, and it's only a little bit, so it's kind of minor in the whole grand scheme of things, but we're taking this little bit of stormwater, bring it through our stormwater system, out into the basin, and then it'll eventually end up in here.
What about the retention basin that is to the east of that component?
This one here?
Yes.
So that's exactly why we put that in there, is we get into the final engineering. If we feel that we need to pick up some stormwater, if we feel that any of these houses are affected at all, it gives us that opportunity to do so.
Okay. But that's not, the purpose of that retention basin on the east, the far east, at the end of the cul-de-sac there, that one you're circling now.
Yep.
That is, the intention of that is not to offload the drainage, the primary drainage from the other component for the north portion of the,
Correct.
of Cambridge Court.
Correct. Yes, it's not. So we're not going to. I think what you're asking is like we're not going to be sending more water this way.
So there's not a chance that retention basin could increase in size.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So that basin is most likely if we do use it, it's going to be what we call water quality. There's two components. There's the stormwater, like the quantity and quality. Right. That would be more of the quality component.
More quality. Okay.
Yep. And so and that'll be on our radar big time, is what is happening to this water here and making sure that we're not affecting these neighbors as part of this design.
Right.
So you're taking the drainage from those houses and going north?
No, we're taking the drainage from these houses and we're taking it west.
You're taking it west?
Yeah, so some of the water that actually goes that way today, we're probably going to be picking it up and sending it to the west, into our stormwater management basins.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Like a whole new development.
Yeah. Ashley, any comments?
And you can't go north. You can't go north because
No.
you can't put the water in the other land.
Right.
In the other property.
Correct.
And one of the things that it kind of comes into play on that one is when we're designing stormwater management, if there's a good point source, like where water is outletting in one location, it makes it a lot easier for stormwater management. You can manage it much better that way. So here there's a 24-inch that goes, I was talking about, that goes underneath this berm on the far west side of the site. So it's much easier to design, much easier to manage that way because it's already a channel that's created. Where it becomes a really big challenge is when you have like a sheet flow going off site and there's no like kind of point that you can't dump it into a stream, you can't dump it into a storm sewer. So you're taking something that's sheet flowing, you're combining it into one spot and you're letting it out. And that's something we want to avoid as we're doing this. And that's we've accounted that as part of this, accounted for that as part of this design.
Okay. Hiram, any other questions? Comments?
Did you have anything to do with going from the yield plan to the preliminary plan?
The yield plan to the preliminary plan, so you're talking about the design of both?
Well, going from making the yield plan to begin with.
So the original yield plan, we inherited. So there's another planner that did the original yield plan, and we kind of took it, we refined it, cleaned it up, and I think it's a much better plan. And not to float our vote, but I think we improved it, the yield plan. I think it works much better. It's more functional if it was actually to be built.
I think the one comment that I have with the yield plan is that some of the lots are not buildable, and some of the lots, the foundation is in the pond. So instead of having 55 half-acre lots, I'm down to 48. And so that means with the additional 4, you might have 52 lots. That's what we have to deal with right now. That's my opinion,
Right, yeah.
not yours.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I mean, you can look at it from so many angles on whether a lot is buildable or not. So I can understand that comment.
So some of the foundations are in the pond or the ex-pond or whatever, and so on and so forth. And then on the preliminary plan, let me see, 44 through 49 are on the existing pond. Lots 7 through 10 are on the existing pond that's been refilled.
Right, correct, yep.
38, lot 38 is it buildable? The same thing with 13 and 14 due to grading, and I think you covered that.
Yep.
And then, since you're taking the storm water for Cambridge Court to the west, my comment on the stormwater management number 3 in the northeast corner goes away.
Yep. Those are all good comments.
Okay. Comment duly noted.
Anything else, Sam?
No, at least not for this gentleman.
Okay. Ashley, any comments?
Not yet.
Not yet. Frank, any comments? Questions?
Well, questions basically, your plan, I guess, eliminates all the ponds that are on that piece of property.
Yes.
Do you know what conservation development really means?
Yep. Yes, I do. Yep. So I understand that comment, and I just kind of go back to, we kind of put the priority on preserving the wetlands. That's what the EPA Army Corps focuses on more than ponds. The ponds they're not necessarily a stormwater management. They're more of an aesthetic to the site. That's why they were created originally, and aesthetic and recreation. So we are reconfiguring them. We are moving them and designing them more as stormwater management ponds. But we put the conservation priority to the wetlands. And I was saying before, like right now we're preserving 90% of the wetlands. That number might adjust just a little bit, but we definitely have that in mind as we're designing this.
If you had the wetlands, which you say you're working on now to preserve, and if you had to keep the ponds, how many units do you think you'd be building? How many lots you'd have to reduce?
Yeah, I couldn't even answer that right now without really taking. There's a lot of factors that come into play because it's you got to reconfigure the roadways. It's not an easy answer. It would be a lot.
I'm sure it would be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to answer.
Were those ponds there naturally over the years of this planet? Or were they man-made many years ago by the owners who owned that property?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
So you're asking who created them?
Yeah, whether Mother Nature, they were always there from day one of the existing of our planet, or did the landowners who own that property now put ponds in there for their enjoyment?
Yeah. Those they have berms on them, like defined berms. So they look like they're man-made. They're created for the aesthetic.
Okay. And they've been there probably for, have any idea how many years or decades?
No, but they've definitely been there for a while.
Do you have a comment, sir? Would you would like?
Yeah, I was gonna say-
if you like, why don't you come on up to
Sorry.
the microphone?
I just wanted to clarify that with the ponds.
Yes.
All right, number one,
Can you state your name again?
Yes.
my name is Eric A. Flickinger, Akron, Ohio. The ponds are man-made, and they're too shallow to support much in the way of fish, because I tried to fish one of them, didn't have any luck, didn't see any fish, so they're not very deep. They were probably used to place fill elsewhere on the site for a combination of aesthetics, and then maybe to build up an area where a house was going to sit. They were placed there intentionally. They're man-made. There's even relic dam structures out there that where the wetlands were originally ponds also, but the dams had failed and they have just become wetlands. But I want to reiterate, ponds are not special aquatic sites, and they are not regulated by the Corps of Engineers. man-made, ornamental, agricultural, stock watering are all non-jurisdictional. And wetlands are a much different matter. Those are considered, and I quote, special aquatic sites. So they even are afforded greater protection than streams. So I just wanted to go on record and let everybody know that. If you have any questions regarding any of the wetlands or the status of the ponds or anything about the geomorphology of the site, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have right now.
Most people buy areas a lot of times that are desirable, you know, with nature, for example. A lot of people like to have a home maybe around a pond.
You know,
Whether you can fish on it or not.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that I bought my house because it had a pond and because I fished it, and I like ponds. I will tell you that this pond is just deep enough to drown a child, but not really deep enough to support any wildlife.
Does a pond, for example, does it have natural water that comes in and fills in and goes out so it stays?
It gets drainage, ephemeral drainage from precipitation. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's essentially functioning as a retention basin, a shallow retention basin. It's silted in. It has, I would, if I were to guess, I would say it's probably 50 to 70 years old. It's hard to say. You know what? I can find out. But I don't think it's worth our time for me to do that.
No, that's good.
Is any other questions? Anybody?
No, thank you very much.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
the explanation. Okay.
Do you have anything else for me?
Well, do you take care of the traffic study also?
No, traffic study there was a study done by TMS, is that right? TMS? Yeah. TMS did the study for this.
How about the site distance study?
Site distance study, we took a look at that and viewed, I think we looked at Goose Road and saw that everything complied from ODOT standards.
Okay, well, I have some issues with that.
Sure.
The proposed drive entrance does not agree with the preliminary plan. You have lots 1, 2, and 3 across from lots 54, 55, 56. And that's not quite the case. The case is that 57, 58, and 59 are off to the side. It does not address those 3 entrances onto Hoos Road in your traffic study or in your site distance study. So
Yeah.
that's got to be revised.
Yeah, so my comment on that is the ODOT standards, it's more for intersections, like major intersections. They don't study driveways, and I don't want to commit anybody to anything, but one of the things that has been proposed in the past on previous projects, when you have houses fronting in more of a busier street, you put a T-type driveway in it, so you pull straight out as opposed to backing out onto Goose Road. But normally, as a traffic study, the lots fronting the road would not be studied as part of that. Is there something particular you're looking for to find out?
When I look at your proposed drive entrance, it doesn't even come close to what is going on in your preliminary plan. And I think they ought to agree.
So you're talking about are you talking about the RCD plan?
I'm talking about, what's the number? 1 of 6. Right after the page on your site distance study.
Okay. Oh, I think I might know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah. So one of. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so 1 of 6 is our would be the. So you're saying that entrance doesn't look like a current preliminary plan?
No.
Got it. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. So we can definitely update that. That's not a problem. I don't think it's going to really change anything.
Shouldn't that study also include the 3 lots up here, 57, 58, 59?
Yeah, we can put those on there. That wouldn't be a problem. Like I said, it's not going to affect what the what the site distance study is saying based on the ODOT standards and requirements. But I kind of get your point, but is it more of a concern of like those, like the site distance for the driveways of those houses, or?
The site distance to the 3 houses off to the right,
Yeah.
and also the traffic coming out of, what is it? Hannerwood Trail.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we can definitely add those and update this exhibit. And again, I don't think it's really going to change anything from a site distance perspective, but
Well,
I can understand the concern.
it should agree.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Howard?
No, sir.
You sure?
Yeah.
Ashley? Frank, any other questions?
I assume this development will have a homeowners association,
Yes.
and you classify it as a senior development, senior citizen development,
Would you classify
adult active community.
adult active community?
What does that mean? 55 plus, so that means anyone that comes or wants to live in that development will have to be 55 or older. No. So you can have young couples with children living in there, right?
How would you answer those? Yeah.
We'll bring the expert up here.
Fine.
Steve Peck, 500 Stonehenge Parkway, Dublin, Ohio. So these ranches are all 2-bedroom, 2-bath on the first floor. The way the HOA docs are written, there's no basketball hoops allowed, there's no trampolines, there's really no room for them with the space that's left on the lot. So in terms of the age restriction, the federal requirement is that 80% of the residents have at least one person that's 55. And that's managed through a census that's taken through the homeowners association and submitted to the federal government every 2 years.
So you can have people that are living there that have young children and everything.
You could, but they would have to be under 55 and within that 80% range. But our average buyer across we sell about 1,000 to 1,100 homes a year in about 23 states. Our average home buyer age is about 63.
But there's no guarantee that that will be the case.
The guarantee is the age restriction in the HOA docs.
Just the age restriction that one person has.
And the lifestyle of which we're providing isn't friendly to kids and the homes themselves.
Well, nowadays, there's a lot of senior citizens that have their grandchildren living with them because either one member of the family may be unfortunate, maybe there might be a divorce in the family.
Sure.
So now they're taking then their child and their grandchildren and everything there, you know what I mean, to live with them. So now you can see what it is with children living around, quote, supposedly a senior citizen development. Young kids running all over the place. And kids are kids, you know what I mean? I don't have anything against children. Don't misunderstand me. But you focus on, here's so much of this focusing on, it's a senior citizen development. But yet we all know in the real world that when situations come out, especially in today, we all know that families are having a rough time of it. So they're taking care and supporting their kids, who have kids and stuff. Then it just turns out to where the kids are there living there all the time.
Yeah, so I can provide you some data from some school districts that we've built a lot of homes in. We've tracked the number of kids that come from our communities. In particular, the Olentangy School District down in Delaware. We've done over 950 homes. In 2019, we had 58 kids in that entire school district out of those 950 homes. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it is rare. Again, the lifestyle. In the Hilliard School District, we had done over, I believe, 500 homes, and they had 8 kids in 2000, same year over year. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the way the houses live, the way the HOA docs are written, it's not friendly for kids.
Well, I can understand that. And we know that. You're building it for the seniors, but,
Sure.
But circumstances do come up where if they take in their grandchildren and they're finally living there all the time, Then over time, when they're going to school, you'll have school buses going in there, picking these kids up and taking them back and forth to school. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, and if it was an R1, that meant the school buses.
Oh, I know that. R1, we would expect that,
Okay.
you know? But I hate to hear the term all the time, senior citizens development. We know, based on what you've just said, there is a possibility there could be children living there, possibly all the time.
It could be.
Sure. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
I stand corrected. That's my question.
is that true? Because looking at the HOA on Article 4, it specifically says under subparagraph B, persons under 21 years of age are not permitted. No dwelling on a lot may be occupied by any person under 21 years of age.
That's a sample doc from another community in Columbus.
Yeah. Well, this is the one that's being kind of put,
I submitted a new one. So,
okay,
Yeah, so we've removed that one because
those
Okay.
are final docs.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah,
We're in a
they're-
preliminary plan
Yeah,
formatting.
we're trying to finalize the docs.
Okay.
Submitted.
Okay.
What's the consequence if you don't meet that percentage?
So the consequence is, while throughout the sales process, if or the salesperson or the builder gets to a point to where they think they're getting close to that 80% or the 20% requirement, then we would not sell a house to somebody 55 or under. Because we have to manage that, and it has to be submitted to the federal government every 2 years, by the HOA. So, and that could be in this. And that happens in the resale situation too. Anything else for me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You done? Have any other comments? I think I don't think we have any other questions.
I'm done.
All right, Ashley? Frank, any other questions?
No, I think I've done
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Small, do you have any other people you had planned on speaking at this point, or?
No, I don't. I think everybody that we brought here to help answer any questions are
Okay.
here, or have spoken already.
All right, good. We'll consider your presentation at this point complete.
Okay, yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up to public comment, and then when the public is done, then you'll have an opportunity, along with the people that you brought, to respond to any comments or questions or concerns that have been brought up. So you'll
Okay,
have to
great,
go
fantastic, thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am. Wait a minute. Okay. For expeditious purposes, what I'd like to do is I would like to do basically a group swearing in or an affirmation. Instead of taking the time to swear each person in as they come up to speak at the podium, what I'll do is, if you're planning on coming up this evening and speaking, what I'd like you to do is raise your right hand and affirm or swear that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth with regards to this matter that's in front of us this evening. I will. Okay, thank you very much. We'll consider you sworn in at this point. What we'll do is we will start with people that would like to speak in favor of the proposed zoning change amendment. And we'll start on my left, your right, row 1. Anybody in favor would like to come up and speak? Okay, row 2. Anybody in row 2 would like to come up and speak? Row 3 would like to come up and speak in favor? Okay, all right, okay, we'll get to you. Okay, anybody in row 4? Row 5? Come on up, sir. Please, when you get to the podium, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm William M. Locksterman, 735 Ruddiman Drive, North Muskegon, Michigan.
Okay,
Shirley A. Locksterman is my mother. She's currently in a nursing home under hospice care.
okay,
My father was William H. Locksterman, who passed in 2004. So I'm the POA, a trustee of the trust, etc.
okay,
So I want to speak in favor of this. I've served on city council up in Michigan, so I've got a little bit of familiarity with voting on the recommendations from planning commissions and zoning commissions. First of all, I want to say I've had the opportunity to view a very popular and successful development in Muskegon that is, the similarities are tremendous. And it's just an amazing success for the city of Muskegon. And, you know, I recognize how hard it is for particularly people that live adjacent to deal with a significant change like this. And as a matter of fact, at first blush, you know, I thought, wow, this is awfully intense. And I've been coming back in this area a lot. And, you know, quite frankly, I see some areas where I think, they're mostly apartments, where I think that's an awful lot on a small area. But when you see when I saw this plan, I said, wow, this is terrific. Because I could see the walkability of it, the lifestyle effect as a senior citizen. This is something that I look at, you know, not having to take care of a yard, but still having amenities available. So I think it's a good project. I think it's a good use of the land. I think it'll be very successful, very popular, or give up people an opportunity, more people to live in the great township of Concord, where my parents have been for, my mother anyway, for 40 years or so. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in row 4 would like to speak in favor? Row 5 would be the last row in this section here. Anybody want to speak in favor? Okay, I'll move to my right, your left. Row 1, anybody would like to speak in favor of the development proposal? Row 2, anybody in row 2? Row 3, anybody in row 3 here to speak in favor? Row 4, in the last row, anybody want to speak in favor? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, on the phone. Is there anybody on the phone, phone participants that would like to speak in favor of the proposed zoning change? I'll assume that means no. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll start again in the same process with those that are opposed to the current zoning amendment change. I would like to start with row 1. Ma'am, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Barbara Kilfoyle, and I live at 10100 Meadow Lake Court. So when you're looking at the proposal, I kind of have the wedge home that's 180 degrees surrounded by the proposal. I've kind of been the lead out person since I've seen the survey happen in my backyard. And, you know, I really want to thank the Zoning Commission, because when we all looked at the February 3rd preliminary, so many of your concerns that you voiced were our concerns, and we really appreciate it. You felt like you guys had our backs. And so when the May 5th documents came out, what I did is I took the original from February 3rd, I lined it up with the minutes, and I lined it up with what was submitted May 5th, and there wasn't much change. So if you take a look at the minutes, Mr. Iafalise, he was critical of the yield plan, saying multiple times that he just doesn't feel the yield plan is not fully developed enough. I don't think the 56 is a reasonable number. And here on your new yield plan, you went down only 55. So yeah, I agree with him both then and now that it's not reasonable. And when you take a look at the requirements for the yield plan, it must be marketable and reasonable. And I know, since I was the last person to build a home there in 2014, that Wetland A and everything that comes down high, Hobby Horse is set up high, Coos is set up high, and everything comes down into the basin, into the Lockstrom property. Wetland A, which I know I sent pictures both to Heather and to Andrew, is something that I can see from my yard. And as I know that Mr. Schindler and probably Mr. Rippert haven't seen, but I mean, I can see it here and give this to Heather and she can circulate around. That's the creek in the front of my yard. It runs through their yard. And you can see the wetland A is in the background. And for me, when I built, that's what I had to put in my front yard. I couldn't have my house there. I couldn't have my house nicely lined up with my neighbors. It had to be set back from there. And I had to have a driveway that was only so wide because I had to respect the water that was feeding into that wetland. So when I see the wetland paved over in the yield, I know it's not possible. I wasn't allowed to do it. I couldn't even have a walkout basement. We originally, when our home was proposed to us, we were going to have a walkout basement, but because of the way everything sloped down, we couldn't do the walkout basement. And then we ended up with a big swale in the backyard, everything focusing down there. We had to respect it because all that water is coming from down high, going right into that wetland A. So I question that, and I know I've pointed that out to you in emails and such like that, and I like to provide the pictures too. Also, there's been questions about, again, that place, and it's really easy to pull up the pictures from the 1940s to see exactly where I'm speaking of right there, and you can literally see the branches going down. And that's from 1940, that's the last aerial shot, the first aerial shots, I guess you could say. And you can also see that the ponds were indeed man-made, but those ponds were, again, take a look at the aerial shots that are available to everybody. The ponds were made in about 1970s, 1972, so they're about 50 years old. And as Mr. Schindler even pointed out in the February 3rd meeting, those areas are pristine. After 50 years, they are pristine. We have geese, we have all these deer, we have unfortunately coyote too. It is like a nature preserve back there. So to see them all buried and filled in, it's sad. It's sad. So that's a major issue. Also, the lack of a buffer. It was again something that Mr. Ifelis brought up at the February 3rd meeting, page 29, line 17 through 27, is that there's no buffer for between the two. And I know that you did grant a buffer for Keystone Drive when they built that between the two different communities. And I really want people to think what they would like right next to them. Would they like a neighbor that has 52 pages of rules and restrictions living right next to them? The two homes that would be, well, and myself included, the number of homes that are going to be impacted have in-the-ground swimming pools. I've got playhouse, and my daughter wants another playhouse built outside of which would be in the backyard of two of the homes that are being proposed. And then, of course, when you read the 50-some pages of restrictions, no signs, no campaign signs, no, a lot of restrictions, no basketball hoops and that. Those are all things that are in our community right now. And that's going to be right next to people who are not allowed to have it. And you're setting up a lot of issues for us to live there in the future and to sell our homes. So that's another issue. And again, it was requested, Mr. Ifelis requested it at the February 3rd meeting, and it wasn't addressed. You just put home after home after home right next to each other. So, and again, like I said in the beginning, your yield changed by 1. From 56 on the February 3rd down to 55 on this May 5th one. Also, as I have reached out to both Lake County Planning Committee, you've got a major problem with traffic in the area. While I can appreciate the study that was done at Canterwood Trail, there was no study done at Hobby Horse, which is a shared entrance to the community. And as I've circulated and sent out via emails, that's the crash report for the area. It shows 13 crashes between Hobby Horse and the proposed Canterwood Trail street. The problem is you have a lot of homes that have, first of all, along Hoos that have entrances right onto Hoos. So you're gonna have people coming out of that Canterwood Trail meeting people coming out of a stationary driveway. Also, as many of us neighbors know, Hobby Horse is a blind site. A known Lieutenant Rizzo at the Sheriff's Department knows that it is a blind spot entrance, Hobby Horse. And I don't know whatever happened to the preliminary trips that Allison spoke of back at the February 3rd meeting, the 336 trips per day that would be coming out of the 55 and over community, but 336 trips out of there would be too much. You're gonna have a lot more accidents than 13. So, and if you even take a look at Morley Road and all along Hoos, there is no higher concentration of accidents than between Canterwood, the Canterwood Trail proposal, and the Hobby Horse. And it's because of the lovely blind spot, which I again shared with you guys via email. That's the way we look at it when we're coming out. And then you can see when you're looking down, this is actually from right near Canterwood Trail, the proposal. You can see where the school bus and the postal truck disappear in the dip. So that dip is where people would be using to get access to this community. And while I know I heard them say that most people would be going through the Canterwood Trail entrance, that's just not the case. I mean, most people you would expect to go down Button Road, but they take a shortcut through Menor Park to access our community and other communities. So people will be using Hobby Horse, and there was no site study done on that either. So, also they stated before in the February 3rd meeting that these were going to be public roads, which means that our kids can walk, I would assume our kids can ride their bikes through them, through the public roads of this new community. Also, whether or not there is the realization that right now, our particular community has 3 different bus systems that come through it. We have Menor Public Schools, we have Riverside, and then we also have the Catholic schools. So just realize right now, all those buses are turning around in Canterwood Trail. So instead of Canterwood Trail being the turnaround, it'll be the exit right through your new 55 and over community. So you're gonna have Riverside, Menor Public Schools, as well as the Catholic school buses coming through your new community with this going forward. Also, let's see, your study was only peak hour study and not for the whole 24-hour that was there. So let's see here, and I can give you pictures, so you can circulate these around. This is Canterwood Trail as it is right now. You guys, taxpayers, were kind enough to put a nice little conservation area in there with trees, and I can tell you that that has definitely helped out my backyard and many people's backyards with the flow of water, and we as a community would hate to see that go. So that is the Canterwood, that's the Locksterman driveway right there, and it's currently marked private driveway. So it was a shock to many of us that that house would actually, in your first February 3rd proposal, that it would actually be bulldozed down. That was a shock for us, that anybody would want to do that. But I see that in the RCD, it's still standing. So my question is also, with the R1 yield, shouldn't we be showing these buildings that are going to stand in the R1 yield? They're not even there. And then also, again, there's no storm sewer or any type of thing in the R1 yield there's nothing in there for how do you manage water in the R1 yield. And probably the last one, probably the one that my husband kept on telling me, you gotta address it, is that. You can pass it around. That's our backyard at night. The one bright light is the Locksterman's carriage light, and the other light is the light all the way out on Hoos Road. We left Mentor for no street lights in Concord. So when my husband and I saw that you were proposing street lights, we was like, oh my gosh, our whole backyard will be lit up. And that light on Hoos Road actually is kind of right beyond the Canterwood Trail Street. So, and you can see the carriage lights. Yeah, that's how dark it is. That's how dark it is, and it's nice. So it's to have street lights, carriage lights are going to be enough shining in our house. We can't even imagine what it'd be like with street lights. So that's all I have to say. You guys can keep the photos.
Thank you. Anybody else in row 1 that would like to speak opposed to the current change in zoning? Okay. Row 2, anybody would like to speak in opposition? Please state your name and address for the record.
Anthony Valensic. I live at 7611 Canterwood Trail in Concord. So my house is the second one adjacent to the new property being proposed. My wife and I bought our home in 2014. Back then we didn't have children. Since then we've welcomed 2 new children to the world and to the neighborhood. So I got a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old who to this day enjoy riding their bike in the cul-de-sac. And I realize some of these comments may not have to do with zoning, but I'm going to state them anyways, and we can go from there. I'm here tonight selfishly to discuss the cul-de-sac that's being proposed to be eliminated. I find it, as a citizen, as a community member, just kind of shocking that we're standing here tonight talking about eliminating a cul-de-sac because of a 1955 site plan that says it's a temporary cul-de-sac. We've lived in this neighborhood. This neighborhood has existed without a secondary means of entrance, since 1955. So for Mr. Radacci at Lake County to say that it's non-negotiable that we can't discuss that, I think it goes against everything we are as a community. There's options, there's alternatives to cul-de-sac cut-throughs, there's gates, there's emergency access pavers, there's a lot of different things that we ought to have a discussion about rather than just one person, mind you, is not a Lake County citizen, to have a say in the matter of what we're doing in the cul-de-sac. I agree with all of Barb's points that she brought up earlier, so I'm not going to restate them. I would like to make note that being in the construction industry, I have found the best neighborhoods and projects that have gone on have been with developers and contractors and planners that have taken the time to understand what the impact is on the neighborhoods and the neighbors surrounding them. To date, I have not heard from, and I don't believe any of the neighbors have, from the developer, and I think that's a shame. Concord's a small town. We ought to be nice to the people that we're intruding on, and I think it was a missed opportunity on their part to gain, and part of the reason why this room is so full tonight. Next to Canterwood Trail, the Silverstein property and the Dunning property, we're showing a 10-foot setback on the side yard. As you see those set up right now, these poor people are going to, walk out of their driveway and see a side yard, a side of a building rather. I'm sorry. There's got to be some sort of buffer between this and Barb's yard, and to say that it's an open green space or it's an open space, define what an open space is. I think we ought to have some definition and some things to be defined moving forward. Not, to me, the proposal is a little too open-ended with ways and loopholes to get around things. So I'd like to see some more guidelines set within, and I think the zoning commission here tonight has the ability to do that, and I would urge you guys to make that happen. I agree with the yield plan, lots 45, 43, 42, 49. While the side cut shows that that's buildable, I would argue that the foundations do not have enough cover there. You're building on a 20% slope. I think it's a haphazard yield plan that meets the criteria. It doesn't satisfy what the intent of that is. Mr. Schindler, I agree with your statements regarding the conservation plan. The true definition of a conservation plan, I think, has evolved, and I think people are using a loophole within the system to get what makes sense to them. So I'd like to see that brought up in future agendas to maintain what Concord is about and what it should be. On the current plan, the cul-de-sac for Canterwood Trail is not shown properly. The radius of that, the diameter of that is actually 100 feet. It's shown as what it is on the original 1955 plan. So there's 4 houses that are going to be impacted if this cul-de-sac is to go through. There's utilities that follow the wider cul-de-sac with easements today. We need to understand what's going to happen with all of those utilities, the power lines, there's gas, there's sanitary, there's driveway shortages, there's existing ravines and creeks that carry the stormwater. How is that going to be managed? It appears as though there's underground site retention for the new streets. We have open culverts in our development. There's probably going to be a head wall, carrying the water from our culverts. There's no details regarding how that's going to go. And I understand this is a preliminary plan, but these are all things that neighboring properties need to kind of understand what's going on with our properties. So, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak in this row in opposition?
My name is Harlan Silverston. I'm the poor person that he talked about. My house is going to abut this new development. I don't even know where to begin with this. I'm probably the oldest, the longest resident, certainly of Canterwood Trail. We built our house in 1983, so we've been there 38 years. And we moved there just like most of the people here. It was absolutely a little slice of heaven. When I told people where we lived, they had no clue where it was. We lived 3 miles from the Great Lakes Mall. Nobody had a clue where we were, and we loved it that way. No street lights. My kids now are in their mid-40s, but when they were little ones, that cul-de-sac was the best. All their friends came over to play there. And again, as Anthony said, this is probably nothing to do with zoning, but you got to have a little history of what this has been and what they wanted to do with it. So then a few years back, they were going to do away with the cul-de-sac. Well, my kids are long gone. Have 9 grandchildren that loved our cul-de-sac. That's where they played ball and rode their bikes. And we put this center circle in there, which now our tax dollars at work, we're going to do away with that if this plan goes through. I just don't understand that. Again, all the people that are concerned about this hobby horse drive and then coming through our street, that just was never meant to be a street. I know there are streets, hobby horse being one, that didn't have a second form of egress. You came up hobby horse and you had to go out hobby horse. That driveway is there. They could extend it if they wanted to and put some kind of gate there with an emergency, something to open it. But to have cars, and I know they will, instead of going in through Moore or through Hoos, that's going to be a little bit more busy, they're going to come up hobby horse and come down our street. It's just going to change our lives. And the one thing I need you guys to know about, I'm not sure this came up in, when I built my house, we bought an additional piece of land from Locksterman's. It's a separate deed. And when I look at the stake in the ground at my house, it's not correct. And I think somebody didn't do enough investigation to see that we have a little 10 or 12 foot, I don't know the details of it, I could get you the parcel, but if somebody did look it up, they could see it. There's a parcel of land, about 10, 12 feet, the entire length of, so I have a turnaround at my driveway that was not originally part of my piece of property. We bought that so we could make that. So I think that the stake in there is incorrectly placed. And as Anthony said, I do not want to walk out of my house and see right in front of me the side of a bunch of houses. There has to be a buffer between our houses and this development that they're talking about.
I'm looking, when I look at the
7595.
Okay, on the picture, they don't have addresses. But
Okay.
Could you just for my?
I'm the last one on the right.
Yeah, he's right next to proposed sublot 25.
I'm the last one on the
Okay, so you're
right-hand
next
side.
to lot 20. So you would be next to what would be considered lot 25.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just for orientation.
That's where I am. So again, as he said, the poor guy, me, who I'm the last house on the right-hand side of the cul-de-sac.
And Anthony, you're his neighbor?
Yes,
Next door neighbor?
Next.
So then you're the second house then?
Exactly.
Okay. I just so I understand. Okay, thank you.
So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else in that row that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, we'll move to the next row. Is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? Please come up, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Ray Dunning. I'm 10181 Hobby Horse Lane, Concord. If you go into the cul-de-sac, I'm kind of that oddly shaped V that's I'm right next to Silverman's and Anthony here, right behind them. So, and by the way, I did notice that stake and thinking, I can't believe he made Pat put his driveway halfway into Locksman's property because he can see it. So that, I didn't realize you thought that, but that makes sense. I'm not as affected as these people, but we're affected because we're behind it. We've been in the neighborhood since just coming up on be 20 years in August. So I understand all the discussions about having young children in the neighborhood. Our kids are now in their 20s or 30s, but we had the same, kids playing in the cul-de-sac, riding their bikes, all that. I think that the idea of cutting straight through and getting rid of that cul-de-sac and having it go all the way through as a street that they talked about, I think, to me, if they want this to work in any way, that's got to be taken out. It's a non-starter. I think it will cause more trouble than it's worth. There's got to be another way to rethink this whole thing if, in fact, this whole project has to move forward. Again, that doesn't affect me as much because I'm down in the cul-de-sac below that, but I do believe it'll affect most of the neighbors on the street, and it just isn't required. Hasn't been since 1955, so I think that's something that's got to really be looked at. The street and the neighborhood that we all moved there for, I remember the day my wife came home and told us that we were moving. I go, well, where? She said, Javier's Lane. We bought a house. I already put an offer in. I go, well, we haven't even sold our house yet. What are you talking about? We lived in Menor at the time. And it's because she was looking at that street for almost a year to find it. That's how hard it was to find a house on that street because of all the things that we all moved there for. So, and I've been thinking since I've heard about this, well, at least we got, almost 20 years of this being the way it was. I'm looking at the bright side that, hey, we had this paradise for 20 years. It's going away. My concern is it seems like this project, the way it's designed, they're just trying to cram too much into that space. They're trying to get through all the state and federal regulations, and they know all the ways of doing it. They've got engineers that know how to do things in a way they'll get approved, but they did not consider the neighbors around them that are dramatically affected by this. The Locksmiths do have every right to sell their property, the Patriarchas. That's their right. They certainly can and should if that's what it's time to do that. But this particular development, the way it's designed, it's as if there's no regard for any of the people on the Hobby Horse, Canterwood, and the local area around it, including the safety issues that Barb brought up. Barb's presentation was excellent. She probably spoke for 90% of what we would all say. But in addition to that, I just think if it's going to be done, it's got to be done more tastefully. There's got to be more green space or separation from around the property so it can be done in a way that makes sense. And the conservation word, it seems like that is a word that is not being used properly for what's being done, because everything's being wiped out in order to put all these 55 properties in there. It seems it may fit the current descriptions within the laws, but I don't believe what was intended by Concord Township. It doesn't fit that at all. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in that row that would like to speak in opposition? Next row back. I think it's row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row. Come on up, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Erin Paglio, and my husband and I live at 7540. Sorry, I have a little bit of laryngitis. 7540 Hobby Horse Lane. We're on the corner of Hoos and Hobby Horse. So the first thing I wanted just to talk about is there's a culvert in our front yard, right in the corner of Hobby Horse and Hoos, and a lot of the stormwater and rainwater runs right into that area, and we have had a lot of issues with it actually overflowing and already drainage problems down right there at the corner when we have torrential or heavy downpours. So that was always a concern for me when it was proposed that there was another development going in, that the rain and stormwater was going to be properly averted or reassessed. Anyhow, so that was my first, but when I heard that Canterwood Trail was going to be opened up and connected to Hoos there, that's when I really was the most concerned. We have a lot of walkers and dog walkers and joggers in our neighborhood, and we don't have sidewalks, and we don't have street lights, and we love it that way. But it's a safe street, and actually my husband and I moved into our house 8 years ago today. So it was just kind of fitting that it was the anniversary when we moved in. We have no desire to ever leave. This is our forever home, and we just want to see it protected. It's been fine having that emergency access through the Lexington property in the event of an emergency. It is a way to get out of there, and we understand that's important. However, I think we are in agreement. There has to be a way to make it work that is not a through street, especially when the R1 was being proposed that it was going to be connected to Morley. That had most of us in a lot of fear because that would cut off the entire corner and it would be a huge cut through, which leads to my final issue that I wanted to address. We live right on the corner there. We have seen so many accidents, as Barb mentioned. We see them because our no through street sign, I think that's the first sign, that's been run over twice. There's been numerous accidents. My mom almost was rear-ended coming over in the winter because when you come over the hill and you come down to Hobby Horse and you want to turn left on the Hobby Horse, if there's a car coming or you're sliding on ice and you're trying to stop, somebody going 40 miles an hour, which is what is, who's his, the speed limit for, thank you, you can't stop in time. And the car screeched and went to the side and missed my mom shortly, Our 3 kids, they're all like in driving now, or the one has her temps. So there's the one place I always tell them, you have to, the minute you turn from Button onto Hoos, turn your blinker on so people at the top of Hoos know that you're gonna be turning left into there. They're aware of that, like be really conscientious. So I've trained them to do that, my husband and I both. I personally, the other day, it was less than a month ago, I almost was front-ended, turning out onto Hoos from our development. A car was flying over and had to swerve out of a car across the street from me, pulling out of the driveway. I ended up calling the police department and just letting them know because it is such a highly trafficked area and it is such a blind spot. So to add any more traffic through our street, I think is absolutely unacceptable for safety purposes to begin with. If adding a stop sign at the top of Button and Hoos is your solution, maybe that will help, but I don't see any reason why we can't come to an agreement that we can make that just an emergency access and keep Hobby Horse alone. As my neighbor said, we understand the property is going to be sold, but if you could just respect, as you can see, there's a whole room full here of people who love and care about where we live, and we are current taxpayers. And I think our concerns should be listened to and addressed when you're approving plans that sincerely affect us. So, anyway, thank you for my time.
Thank you. Anybody else in that row that would like to speak in opposition?
I'm Tom Freevis. I live at 10201 Hobby Horse, which is right at the end of the cul-de-sac. So behind my home will be a bunch of other homes. I have a question, I guess, for the zoning, maybe your board, whatever your title is. I looked through the documents, and then the documents that were presented today, couldn't quite see them around the corner. But it seemed like there's 3 or 4 or 5 different sets of documents, and this is all preliminary, I understand that. But do you approve based on preliminary, and then whatever we get? What is the process going forward, so we understand, is there another opportunity to speak?
Yes, there is. The way the process works is we have a public hearing in front of the zoning commission, and everybody's given an opportunity to speak and voice their opinions, and then we vote based on the information that we have in front of us, and then after that's concluded, then it's given to the trustees, okay, and they have another public hearing. We're a recommending board, that's all we are. Our decision is not final. We make a recommendation to the trustees then take under advisement our public hearing and all the information that they have from that, and then they make a vote and they have the final say. So we could approve this plan tonight and they could reject it, or we could reject this plan tonight and they could approve it. So
will we all be invited to that next hearing?
You'll have the opportunity. It will follow the same protocol that's followed with public hearings. There will be announcements. All the affected property owners will be alerted. That it will be out there for consumption electronically on the website. You know, you'll have plenty of opportunity, but yes, there will be another
So is there a
public hearing.
When did the documents that are being voted on get locked down? So we're voting on this.
Mike, do you have a?
When you're saying lockdown, do you mean with reference to changes that were made?
Yeah,
In the
every
process.
document, some of them dated the same date, have different things on them, so I'm just trying to.
I don't
figure
know
out
when
what
they were locked down
documents-
per se, because I'm not privy to when they're submitted. So, all I know is there's an end product that's before the zoning commission at the present time for consideration.
Right.
The different documents that may make modifications in that,
Well, I heard one of the guys behind me say they submitted something today, so.
I don't know. I'm not a gatekeeper for the process.
What we do is we vote on the information that we have in front of us this evening. Okay, and we take under consideration the comments and the presentation from the applicant. We also take under consideration the comments and remarks that are made by the public with regards to either their favorable comments or their opposition comments. And then we make a decision based on that. We make recommendations, okay, based on recommendations that are made. We have an opportunity to sit here and make some recommendations on changes, and then it's up to the applicant whether or not they want to incorporate those into our process. So,
Changing direction a little bit. My major concern about the plan is drainage. I have, my house is the lowest house on the Hobby Horse. There's a pond behind me. There are lots of fish in my pond. In fact, I can show you a picture of a bass about this big that my grandson pulled out of there the other day. There's plenty of wildlife back there. Anyhow, as it exists today, water comes down that hill into my backyard and into that pond. And if you alter that water flow, which they're proposing to do, it seems to me that it can only get worse. So I'm very concerned that as they develop from directly behind my house out toward Morley, they're putting 3 or 4 more houses in there and more opportunity for water to drain faster, and it's just not going to get out of the neighborhood fast enough, which means my house is going to flood and my house value will be hurt substantially by this proposal. So I know that's, I agree with the points that everybody made, and you were very well prepared, so I don't have anything to add on those points.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'll see you on that.
Anybody else in that row that would like to come up and speak in opposition? Anybody else in that last row? Okay, now I'm going to move over. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Come on up, please. Hello.
My name is Amy Wallace, and my husband and I live at 7580 Morley Road. So we're right next to where the proposed development is. Our main concern is the creek or the stream that runs through there. It already cannot handle any more water. It already spills over the culvert into our yard. So that is the stream that goes between our property and the proposed development property.
When was that taken?
I don't know the date, but it does that when there's heavy, not when it's just a regular rain, but when we have those heavy rains. We have a walkout basement, so that's also a concern.
Yeah, let's pass that over to Frank. Thank you.
So there's a cement culvert and it will breach, the pond will breach. And the stream, there's just no room for more water. We live behind the gentleman who just spoke, so he has the same concern that we have.
when you say more rain than usual,
Well, when we
if
get
it
some
rains,
of really heavy rains, not if it's just an ordinary.
if it rains real hard,
If it rains hard.
it goes
for
through right
a day.
away. But if you have like rain that, like a good couple days of rain, average rain, does this start filling up and you get all
It
this?
depends how, it depends how fast. We've only been there 2 years, that's the other thing to let you know. So it just depends how.
Address that question.
You can.
Okay. When you've noticed this, have you contacted anybody at the township maybe, or contacted anybody in Lake County?
No.
No?
No.
If we get I'll say an inch of rain in an hour and a half, it's pretty heavy rain.
Yeah.
And my backyard will start to flood from the water coming down the hill from the property up there. They called it the pond will start to fill, and it's supposed to flow out through a series of like 4 holes in the concrete. And if we get another inch of rain in the next hour or so, that will overflow the concrete. And when it overflows the concrete, that means the pond's high enough, the water in my backyard's high enough, and my sump pump just like running like crazy. And I'm sure that it's spilling on their property because I've been down there trying to clean brush out of there to open that up, and, trying to keep it flowing so I don't get any more damage to my property. So it's a routine thing, and I did contact one time to have them come down there. I've been there since 17 years, and I would say that the amount of sediment in that pond has probably doubled or tripled in that time. It's all just come rushing down. I mean, it drains all the way from Weathersfield down into that pond, through some other ponds. It's doing what it was designed to do, but it doesn't last forever.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Go ahead, ma'am. You can go ahead and continue. Thank you for sharing your picture.
You're welcome. Our other concern is the lighting. Our house sits up pretty high. It's built into a hill. So really our main floor is what would normally be like an upstairs for somebody. So we're concerned the lighting will come right into our home. And we're also concerned and would like a little more clarification on what the clubhouse exactly is there going to be, because the clubhouse will be adjacent to us. So is the clubhouse going to have outside lighting?
Now, where did you say you're at, ma'am?
We're at 7580 Morley.
On Morley Road?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not, because the clubhouse is in kind of like in the middle of the development,
Well,
right? So,
is that the clubhouse?
Yeah, you're here.
Right, we're
and the
here.
clubhouse is right here.
So what, I thought that
That
was
is
the
just
clubhouse
over
on
on-
one of the,
No.
okay.
That's just a
not-
different building
okay,
pad
all right,
size.
Okay.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just want to make sure I understand.
Okay, that's my mistake.
All right, no, that's okay.
Is there
Things
still?
have changed. There's been,
Right,
there's been
right.
more than one
Okay.
plan put in front of us, so we understand.
So my
That's
next
okay.
question is there still a proposal on the table for an entrance that comes out to Morley Road?
No,
Okay, that's all, that's not, okay.
yes.
All right, so we also.
That
have
entrance
concern.
that they showed there originally, if it's an R1, that could be developed that way. They were looking at putting an entrance out to Morley.
Right.
With that type of development. This here is conservation that.
Yeah, and the original yield plan, and it gets confusing, and I understand with the terminology, but in the initial yield plan, which is what the developer proposes is what they could potentially put in, that's a yield plan. What that does is that gives you an idea of if they were just going to develop it as an R1 development without going through this process. There would have been a street, well, I think in their initial yield
There
plan,
was
they had a
one.
street
Okay.
coming out and going into Morley Road.
Right, okay.
But with this, the proposed plan, it's a cul-de-sac that comes way short of Morley. So
Okay.
yes, it's not going to go in there.
All
Okay?
right, thank you.
Okay,
I
you're
think
welcome.
that's everything, thank you.
Well, thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else in that last row that would like to make a comment in opposition? Before I move to the right-hand side of the room, the left-hand side, your left, my right, is there anybody else over here that changed their mind would like to come up and speak that hasn't spoken yet? Okay? We'll move to this side of the room. On the first row, is there anybody that would like to speak in opposition? Come up, sir, and state your name and address for the record, please.
My name's Brian Mims. I live at 10073 Meadow Lake Court. I'm not really speaking in opposition or for. I have more questions, I guess, than I have answers. And my question is the word open space. My concern is if this thing goes through, what stops development from happening in open space down the road? Is there an opportunity for tennis courts, pools, playgrounds, things of that nature, anything in there? And what's in place to prevent that stuff from happening? Is it up to the HMA at that point?
Well, it could be a number of issues. Sometimes developers engage with a conservation organization to manage the open space. Sometimes it's managed through the HOA. Sometimes it's managed through the township. It just depends on the situation with what the developer proposes. But as far as the open space is concerned, that is the intent of the open space is for it to be left in its natural state. So it's not to be developed. It's not they're not supposed to put swimming pools or tennis courts or basketball courts or anything like that in the open space. That is the intention of the open space, is to maintain a natural setting.
And I guess that's my concern, is the word intention.
Right, well, yes.
Because, certainly, and obviously, there's always the possibility of, encroachment. People's yards are butting up to the open space. What's to stop them from moving further and further back towards the current residents?
Diligence of the neighborhood, diligence of the residents, diligence of the neighborhood, diligence of the HOA, diligence of the conservation organization that's involved. Does that mean that it won't? No, absolutely not. I live in a conservation development myself, and I know what happens. And it does happen, and you're right. There is encroachment. I don't think it's intentional. Sometimes it may be, but I think for the most part, I think people's intentions are true. But they start cutting the grass and they encroach, they take a couple trees down, and then all of a sudden their half-acre lot turns into a three-quarter acre lot, and I understand that happens. Okay, and that's why we have tried to put the mechanisms, the restrictive covenants for the property and the development in place that will prevent those things from happening. But at the end of the day, there is no guarantee that those won't happen. It's really up to the residents, the neighbors, to make sure you police what's going on in your development, and that's kind of the important component that takes place. So, but the answer is that there is no guarantee that the intent is what it is. It's the intent, and you really hope that your neighbors will, live up to that intent.
Well, and I guess the question really is more, if they were going to build something along the lines of a playground, would they have to come here and put in a request for a permit like I did when I built my shed? Is there things that would have to receive approval in order for them to do something
Once
like
it's
that?
designated as open space, that's the way it remains.
Okay.
So now, does that mean that if the community got together and they decided they wanted to put something else in, that they couldn't come and ask for that? Sure, I'm sure it's their right to do that, but at the end of the day, I think that'd be pretty tough sledding to get something like that approved.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're granting approval based on the plans that were given this evening, okay? Or denying, we're either approving or denying based on what we're given this evening and the comments that are being made this evening.
And I guess that's where my biggest concern
Right.
is what could change as we move forward.
Understood.
Because we talked about this being a lot of preliminary plans.
Right. And those are valid concerns, those are valid comments.
One of the things that I would suggest is that most homeowners have a strong association. And it's up to the homeowners association. When people buy into those areas, they're given that normally by the developer, or I should say the realtors. They should be given that. And it's going to be as strong as the members you have in your association. If they stick together and really covet that association agreement, that's where you'll be able to have control. But over time, and trust me, I know about this because I had an association in my development, which is no more. Because the people leave, and then after a while, people don't want to take responsibility anymore, or they don't want to be a member of the governing body that's part of the association. And that's when things start falling apart. So if you can have a good, strong association and make it known that none of this stuff can be done, that's probably your best hope. Trust me. Okay? Because other than that, then start going to the township, for example, or associations like us. You'll be going trying to get through lawsuits and stuff, and that can go on, and all that does is cause bitterness. So all I would suggest is have a strong homeowners association so you can govern each other and keep an eye on each other. See that stuff like this doesn't happen. And have your meetings. We would have meetings every month with the boards of our association, and we would do a lot that governed our neighborhood. And you have a strong association, things will move along very smoothly. Trust me.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Anybody else in row 1? Okay, I'll move to row 2. I don't think there's anybody in row 2. Row 3. Anybody in row 3 that would like to speak in opposition of the proposed zoning change? Row 3. Okay, row 4. Anybody in row 4 that would like to speak in opposition? Come on up, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Bernie Manila. I live at 10065 Meadow Lake Court. I'm on the western edge of the proposed development. I've lived at that address for nearly 29 years. Just a few comments. Some I'm just going to re-echo what's already been said. I think that the R1 plan, which was presented as the basis for this development, has a lot of holes. So I really question how you can go from the R1 to the RCD in good faith. It was just brought up about what happens to the, if it was approved to go to an RCD. I think me and my neighbor who just spoke before talk about the open space. Right now it shows a nice buffer in this new development between our property and, so if it stayed that way forever and ever, that would be pretty nice. Our concern is, yes, we heard the word intention, but what happens? It's a nice big piece of property there that's open, and I could see something coming in there down the road. Developers are out of the plan, they're out of the picture. Homeowners association takes over, right? They decide what's done. I'm not saying my other neighbors wouldn't be concerned, but it really wouldn't be their problem in the future. So, when they put in open space, the intention's good. You just have to have faith in people that they're, and the zoning commission would have your back. That's what went in. You're not going to do anything to that property. I heard other terms earlier about walking trails, and in the plans that I saw, I never saw a walking trail. So is it possible that they could tell us, are they going to put a walking trail right through the field next to our property? Is that proposed area for a walking trail?
Sir, don't mean to interrupt. I understand your concern, and I think that's a question we would like you to present to us, and then we'll give him an opportunity to respond to that. So we'll get you an answer on that.
Other issues that have been voiced, my property, again, is just to the west. I have a whole line of property going to the west, almost all the way to Hoos. And there is a wetland in my property, my back third of my property, and it receives the water from Canterwood. So if there's going to be additional flow into there, it does get wet in the springtime, but it dries out in the summer. You could walk on it. There's a creek that runs through there and it flows into a pond right at the corner. If there's going to be additional flow, it's going to come down through there into my back property, into the neighbor's property who's not here, into that big pond. Maybe you've probably seen it if you've ever been there, at the corner of Button.
So I understand your location because we don't have addresses on here. I'm just looking at the drawing. Can you be specific as to which house you're in on Meadow Lake Court, please? Could you show us?
Well, it would be just to the west of the western line.
Okay, so you would be right up against that western.
Yes, we have this built-in swimming pool next to the field.
Gotcha.
That we've had for 20 years.
So that wetland, that .43 acres of wetland A is in your back, towards the back of your property. Is that on your property?
If it's the part that's directly behind mine, yes.
Okay.
And then what they were talking about, culvert, or there's another pond just to the east into the Locksterman property that
Right.
flows in and underneath into there, and it all flows west.
Right.
Everybody said that everything goes east to west. Into the ponds, all the way down, and then it flows out onto Hobby Horse when we get bad storms into the Paglios property.
Understood.
So if that's gonna get worse, I guess we have to deal with it.
Understood.
Okay? And then finally, one last question. I think what I'm hearing, a question was raised about process tonight. I think we're here, and you're gonna actually vote tonight on this proposal.
We'd like to.
Okay, and if you do, how often does your recommendation go forward? Whatever you vote, what's the percentage of time the trustees just take what you take? Is it like 90%?
You know what, I honestly, when I have the opportunity to sit here on this dais as a zoning commission member, I get to have my input on every project that comes in front of the township. And I don't really, you may think this is kind of weird, but I don't really pay any attention what happens after our meetings. I don't watch the trustee meetings. I don't talk to the trustees about what they decide. If they vote against our proposals or our recommendations, it doesn't matter to me.
Maybe I should have asked it a different way, is how often do they?
I honestly, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know that sounds kind of strange, and I'm sure there's statistics that are out there that would show how many times they vote in accordance with our recommendation. But a lot of people say, oh, I see that the trustees shot your proposal down. It's like, so? I mean, I had my say, we made our recommendation, we did our jobs, and then it's up to the trustees to make their final recommendation, and that doesn't really matter to me because we've had our opportunity to discuss this and put a proposal in front of the trustees. So how it all falls, I honestly can't always tell you. I don't really pay any attention after it leaves here.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you, appreciate your comments. Anybody else in that back row that would like to comment in opposition? Last row. Sir, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Eric Scheck. I live at 10145 Hoos Road. I'm a little late to this ball game. I didn't receive notification of these proceedings until just a few short weeks ago, so I'm kind of behind the eight ball. But it seems to me, after hearing everybody's individual concerns for any liability on their property, I look at the overall big picture of all of this. And I'd like to ask the commission, who benefits from all of this? I can guarantee you it's not one single person that surrounds that property. It seems to me only developers are the ones who are going to benefit from this. You know, when I moved in over there, I could look across the street and I was like a horse farm. Mr. Locksterman, I'm sure, could back me up on this, that when you had an open field, horse barns, and beautiful ponds that you could see from the roads, apple trees, there is no way that a development can look better than that. And I think that if it goes forward, this new zoning amendment, that it should be a very minimalistic footprint that is put on this property. I think a proposal of filling in ponds is totally unacceptable. I think that 30% for conservation is not enough. I think that should be a much higher number. The only one who benefits from more homes is a developer. Certainly none of us homeowners.
Well, you know, I think you make a very valid point, and I appreciate your comment. And this is something that we grapple with on a regular basis as a zoning commission. This issue has been in front of us on more than one occasion. We have made numerous changes, tweaks and adjustments to our RCD text over the last several years since we have approved it into our zoning text. We felt it was in the best interest of the community to try to avoid the cookie cutter R1 development where they don't have to come, the developer doesn't have to come to us for permission. It's already zoned. They can go right to the planning commission and make their proposal and start construction. It's a relatively streamlined, simple process. And we have no input as a community. Okay, we have none. We have you can go to the Lake County Planning Commission hearings and voice your opposition there, but it's pretty much the die is cast at that point. What we felt the conservation zoning would do would give us an opportunity to have some input and give the residents, the affected residents, some input into the process. And so what we have in front of us is an opportunity that we give to the developers to kind of steer them towards a conservation type of a development, a choice, is to set aside some open space. And for doing that, because they're forfeiting homes, they're giving up lots that they could potentially build homes on, potentially. We're giving them a bonus, we're giving them an opportunity to add to that in order to preserve some open space for the community. We think we all benefit from that if we have open space. Okay, we all benefit from those types of developments. And so we've made adjustments, we've talked about it, and it's not easy to come up with percentages, you know, to just put a flat percentage on if the parcel of property is X number of acres and they want to do a conservation development. What's the percentage? How do you assign a number to that? It's kind of a very arbitrary number. And then at what point do you take it to the point where a developer looks at that? Because this is an option, it's not a requirement, it's an option. And we hope that it is enough to incent the developer to choose this over a traditional R1 development. If it's so onerous on the developer that they have to give up so much property and so much space that it doesn't become a feasible project. Okay, so they opt to just go with the traditional R1, and we lose out as a community because now the space that could have been open space is gone. They clear cut, put up houses, a lot of impervious surfaces with rooftops and driveways, et cetera, rows, and it's over. And you get what you get. And whether you like it or not, whether you're affected by it or not, doesn't really matter because it's going in. With the conservation zoning concept, we have a lot more input. We have a lot. This hearing is because of this. You're all here tonight because we have this zoning text opportunity in our zoning resolution, and you have an opportunity to provide input and either a favorable comment or an opposition comment on this proposal. And as we look at these things, we're constantly trying to make changes on the process because we don't like we decided as a zoning commission, we don't like the yield plan, okay? So now we've made moves in the future that we've eliminated the yield plan as a process because we know that the yield plan is really just kind of this, and the developers will stand here in front of us and say, well, we're not really gonna build this, but this is the yield plan. So we said, well, if you're not going to really build it, then why are you coming in front of us with this as a potential development? So we've eliminated the yield plan. We're striking that out of the. We're not even going to have that as a part of the process moving forward. Today, it's here because this is the text that we have that's in place. But we are making changes as we move, and we welcome the community's input on a regular basis. We are here once a month, the first Tuesday of every month, and I'll say 90% of the time, maybe more, there's an empty room. And we do work sessions, and this is all a part of public record. Our agenda is published, the things that we do. We would love to have people come in here and explain to us what they would like to see as a community so we can take those ideas and incorporate that into the process because it's important. But when we don't have any community input, it's very difficult for us to read the tea leaves and understand what it is that people actually want. And so I'm sorry for kind of going off on the rail here, but I just want you to understand, you say, is there things that can be done? And the answer is yes, we need input, and we're doing the best that we can with the information that we have and the plans that are put in front of us. And we take this very seriously. We don't wish to impact people's properties. I've lived in the township. I think I moved in '88. I've been here since '88. And I've been on the zoning commission since '98, I think. So I've been on the zoning commission over 20 years. And I've been through a lot of this process, and it's very important. And we take this very seriously. And and we understand that people's properties are impacted, the value of their homes are impacted, and we try to do these things and impact the least amount that we can. But at the end of the day, we don't own the property. I'm a property rights advocate. I believe that people have the ability to do with their property as they see fit. They pay the taxes, they pay the mortgage, and they should be able to do the things that they want to do, and you should be able to live and enjoy your property the way it is. And I know that when you live next to a big piece of property and it's a horse farm, it's awesome while you're living there. But at some point in time, it's still a piece of private property, and it's going to turn into something. And you hope that we have the input and the ability to kind of direct what it turns into versus just somebody coming in and just clear cutting, plowing it over, grading it, slapping up houses, digging up foundations and putting in houses. We hope that we can have a little bit more input. And that's why we do what we do, and that's why we do this, so that we can get the input and we can have the ability to listen to people's thoughts and process. Because if this was an R1 development, make no mistake, this would be going in and you would have no input. You could go and you could throw yourself in front of the Lake County Planning Commission, but you're at their mercy. And if they're not as if it's an R1 zoning and it's within the Ohio Revised Code that fits all their requirements, it goes in. That's the way it goes. And they can mitigate wetlands, they can mitigate a lot of different things and deal with it, and that's what you get. So this gives us a process. So as a resident, you have to make a decision. Do we want something where we can have some input, or do we just get what we get? And that's what happens. If we drive this process, if we make it so onerous on the developers that they don't want to go with conservation zoning, then you're going to get an R1 or an R, whatever the designation, that's what you're going to get. And so we hope that we don't want to take the slash and burn component. We want to try to make this so that it's acceptable, and that the developers, there's an advantage for them, they can take advantage, and there's a dual advantage here. We all win, and to me, we all win in a conservation development, because there's land that's preserved as open space, and you get houses, and you hope that we try to get a balance, and that's what we try to do. So,
thank you for your comments, though some of them I don't like.
I say a lot of things up here that people don't like, but that's the job.
In regard, though, to this request for the new R2 zoning, I too think there are too many holes in it, and I think that it requires further amending.
And you know what? And I would love to see people come in here on the first Tuesday of every month, and when we have a work session and we're discussing zoning text amendments and changes to the zoning, definitions, purposes, all the things it's not a glorious job, folks. It really isn't. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of things that we go through, and it would be great to get some public input on this stuff. I mean, we actually put a section on our agenda. Every meeting there's a section at the end of the agenda that says public input. So you can come here and you can talk, you can bring things up, you can discuss anything to this zoning commission that you want to, and we'll be glad to hear what you have to say. And if it's a valid issue and we think that there's some merit to it, we'll put it on the agenda and we'll put it into the zoning text, and we'll incorporate it into what we do. We welcome that kind of thing, and we would really appreciate it if people would come. But like I said, there's a lot of nights that we sit up here and we're lonely. There's nobody out there, nobody on the phone, and we have to make decisions, and it's hard. So anyway,
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else have a second thought? They want to come up and speak in opposition? We're in the opposition component. Anybody else would like to come up and speak? Okay, at this point, I will close oh, I'm sorry, that's right, thank you, on the phone. Is there anybody on the phone that would like to speak in opposition to the proposed zoning change?
Yes.
Oh, well, I'm glad I thought of that then. Thanks to the nice people in the second row. State your name and address for the record, please, and go ahead and state your case.
My name is Paul Daniels. I live at 10205 Buildability Square. And my main question was regarding, if you look at the phasing map, phase 2, which is what I have in front of me, lot 40 to 44 in the proposal, we have five units, plan units of our property line. And there's concerns about that many units. I do see the benefits of the Rcd 2 and the developer of 55 and over. I see benefits to that. However, I have some concerns about that many units and the buffer setback. Is there a setback when it comes to orders in R1? Is there a mandated buffer? I thought your last meeting you amended 15.25 section E in the resolution to include a 50-foot, but I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
Mr. Chairman, I
That would
can.
be for the zoning commission to clarify that, the setback, because on the plan, it was pretty close. I mean, I think the building setback is 30 feet, and that just seems to be too close there. And we also have some stormwater grading, stormwater management, drainage issues. We have outdoor sumps, we have French drains, we have flooding. So we're just concerned about the drainage as well, the high water table. And there's concerns about that, has to be reviewed by the Lake County engineer and stormwater management. Just those are our concerns.
Heather, do you want to respond to that?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer the question on whether or not there's a required buffer between an existing R1 and an RCD. There is currently not a required buffer. What you heard probably was part of our work session that the Zoning Commission had last month when we were talking about potential changes to the text. Those changes have not been moved forward yet. They're not adopted in any way. So if they're proposing lots with no open space there, such as shown on this plan, the only setback requirement that they would have to follow is the minimum 30 feet.
Does that answer your question, sir?
So it's just a 30 foot, so potentially it could be a structure 30 foot from our, 30 feet from our property line, is that what I understand?
Second.
Yeah, the house could be as close as 30 feet.
Yes.
Correct.
Could be.
Okay, well, I feel that I would think it's going too close, there needs to be more of a buffer, especially with that many units there. But, and then also, like, it appears, and that's just to clarify, also the zoning resolution, that 20 feet from, you can't clear trees out more than, or only after 20 feet from the building, like hedgerows, trees. Is that correct?
Again, this is Heather Freeman, the zoning inspector. That 20 feet is strictly for a planned unit development, R2 district. This is an R2 residential conservation development. So that is not applicable for this design.
So I'm sure that's the main concern, that the drainage, the stormwater problems, the flooding, all those units right on our property line, very close. I don't see any other home in the area that has that many units that close to the property line. So that would be a major concern. And what's it going to look like? I know the R2 is supposed to preserve hedgerows, natural corridors, trees. The R1, I know that they don't clear cut. They clear cut the R1, and not in the R2, but what is left of that natural barrier, do they keep the trees there and the hedgerows? That'd be my question.
Well, would they leave them, or is it?
Right, is there, and they said there's no buffer, but would they leave, I mean, there's some trees that straddle the line, the property line, and then there's some shrubs, just natural, like a hedgerow, like it says right in the zoning resolution. But is that left that's screening, I mean, we're gonna be looking at just a row of houses 30 feet from our property line?
That would be a question that we'll ask Mr. Small to address when he gets a chance to respond. So please stay tuned. I'll make a note of it.
What would be how close to our property line would the building, the homes be from our property line? And would the existing vegetation, trees, bushes, would anything be left there, or is that, how would that look aesthetically? Maybe you could.
Okay, we'll make sure we ask that question. We'll get that responded to for you.
Like I said, that'd be what concerns me, and then, of course, the drainage problems, potentially. That's all.
Okay. Any other comments? Are you good? I guess so. Okay, is there anybody else on the phone that would like to make a comment in opposition? I'll take that as there's nobody else. Okay, at this point I will close the public portion of this public hearing. Mr. Small, would you like to come up and address some of the comments and questions that have been raised during the public comment period?
Do I need to state my name again?
No, you're good.
Okay. Is this, all right, so there's quite a few comments, so give me a minute. First off, I heard the comment that we have not heard from the developer. Someone from our office has been speaking with Jen Smizer. So we offered to have a meeting with them and they politely turned it down. So we did talk about having a meeting with the residents. Two, the temporary cul-de-sac on the plan on Canterwood Trail, we would like to keep it. That would be a benefit for us too, but Lake County Planning, I believe, would not allow that. So our hands are tied, basically.
And that's an egress-ingress issue, with regards to the development, safety, forces, things of that nature. They really frown upon developments that have one entrance in and out. Because if something were to happen, a tree falls down, flood, accident, blocking, then somebody has an issue and they can't get back into the development to address it, that becomes a major safety issue. So that's what happens with the ingress egress kind of side of things on that, just so you understand. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's okay. By the way, you explained the process very, very well with the RCD, and that's what we're all for, is trying to conserve as much space as possible. In fact, I spoke with Heather a little bit about it. Like, the houses that we're planning on building aren't as deep as the lots that we need. So in our mind, we'd like to actually cut more of the lots off to conserve more open space. So as far as public meetings and going forward on RCD plans, I think it's got to have some flexibility for the developer so he can create more open space. There's different, we can talk off record about calculations. I think I talked to Dave Berdacci about a little bit about calculations for yield plans, and he's in line thinking with what we were thinking as well. So,
okay.
Sorry to get off topic there.
That's okay.
I heard the comments about the neighbors to the south on Canterwood Trail sublots regarding coming into our development, heading north. That's why we proposed making those lots wider and not making them an Epcon style house, making them single family. So the houses that will be next to them will be single family, more of a traditional sense of flowing into there, so they won't have a different style house than what's next to them.
So your proposal for lot 24 and 25 is
23, 24. It's on the
25
western side, and 25 we did have that wider, and Mr. Silverstein, they did adjust the plan to account for the wider parcel. So, and that was resubmitted to Concord Township.
Okay.
So they asked about adjustments and when are we done adjusting. It's there's a process to go through, and then there's questions, and then there's feedback, and then we try to keep adjusting to the feedback, and it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. You keep turning and adjusting. So there's a lot of variables that go on to make the plans, and it's not final until, you know, until the end, basically, until you get to the final design. Let's see what else. We talked, there was a lot of concerns about traffic. And from what I heard from the residents, it sounded like Hobby Horse and Hoos, it's a lot of accidents that happen there. So this development, the proximity of Canterwood and Hoos is closer to, for these residents to leave and enter that way. Whether a resident decides to go that way, that would be up to them. But my feeling is that logically they're gonna come the shortest distance to get out of the subdivision. I know that's when I leave my subdivision, that's how I leave the shortest distance. Let's see what else. We talked about the HOA a little bit in the open space. So that's why we're deeding it to the HOA. This HOA will probably be different from a lot of the HOAs that are out there for traditional subdivisions. It might be more like an HOA like Quail Hollow. So this is gonna have a community center. The HOA is gonna have to manage the community center, the clubhouse, the pool, the parking lot, and all the maintenance regarding that, cutting lawns, snow plowing. I'm probably missing some other things, but there's a lot of, they're gonna be a very active HOA. So, and then the residents are gonna be buying a piece of property, and we're not gonna be proposing to put a tennis court behind anyone's house. So I feel like if anything like that even came close to happen, the township would be getting a phone call.
Right. Can you address the walking trail? I know there was some folks that
sure.
addressed the walking trail. So can you give us an idea of where you're planning on putting them, or what they would look like?
It would just be one walking trail. It would be for sublots 57 through 59, which are on Hoos Road. And we would have a little natural walking trail connecting to Canterwood Trail. Yeah, and that's from the Lake County Planning. They made the comment about that being not connected to the subdivision. They'd have to pull out and drive. So we figured let's put a small little walking trail connecting.
So you're talking about putting a walking trail in the open space that goes from where?
57 through 59
right.
on Hoos Road to Canterwood Trail.
So that's going through their backyards, the 50?
No, right to the front of the subdivision, right in front of, hold on, let me see the sublot number if I can. The 56.
So you're talking about a walking trail that would go out behind the houses, and then in the open space it would go in between the buffer between Hoos Road and lot 56?
Yes, it would go into the front of the house. It would actually, yes.
To connect to Canterwood Trail.
Yeah, there would be a trail from 59, 58, 57 connecting to Canterwood Trail north of sublot 56 between 56 and Hoos Road.
Okay.
So the entire.
So there would need, oh, sorry.
Sorry, the entire thing is right next to you, parallel Hoos Road.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and there we're not proposing any other walking trails at this time.
Everybody understand that? Understand where that's going to be? Okay. I want to make sure.
Let's see what
one
else.
walking trail. And a smaller walking trail. I'm going to work up a sweat.
Let me see where was I? Okay, and then the yield plan, we presented a yield plan based on the zoning code, which called for a conceptual plan with not involving significant engineering costs, and demonstrates the proposed street layouts with a reasonable and marketable number of lots. Now that's very up for interpretation.
Right.
But we showed from the engineer, we're a builder and a developer, we've built on some pretty unique lots And building and engineering, you can pretty much almost put on anywhere. Let me see what else. And I think some other concern was the stormwater management, which I could have Brian come back up here and talk about that again, because it's got to go through county regulations and calculations. I think he's the expert, so I don't want to get anything wrong.
Okay, I got stormwater management. Hello again. So stormwater management was discussed a lot, and as everyone was talking, I was kind of going on the map and putting dots where people were talking about drainage issues that they have. And so, when I said earlier that we'll have to meet the Lake County requirements for stormwater management, pre and post flows, that can't be exceeded. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in that regards. One of the reasons why I kind of marked that is we can already see, like, from the research and the surveys that we do, kind of where the problem areas are going to be. But hearing from you guys kind of helps us to focus on certain areas. So when I get back to the office, this is what I give our engineers and say, you need to focus on these areas. So we're going to do the best possible job at trying to mitigate any ill effects to you guys. But the top priority is meeting the county code. But then if we can go above and beyond, we certainly will. One other thing with, I think it was Paul on the phone on Isley, he was talking about the buffer and how much buffer would be in the backyards. Those lots are a little bit deeper, which Jeff kind of talked about a little bit. So there's some natural buffer that will occur. When we do our grading plan, we try and limit our grading limits to the max extent practical. But our number one priority is going to be stormwater. So we'll have to run either swales or storm sewers behind those lots. So we may need to clear trees in order to do that. So our priority, stormwater, but if we can keep trees there, we certainly will. So hopefully that helps.
Let me see, did I have, okay, yeah, you're good, all right. Okay, I have, there's two memorandums that were submitted. I'm sorry.
Can I make a couple comments also?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Usually hard to use this stuff. I'm Tom Reeby, 10210 Ilsley Square. Actually, this is been our neighbors' properties ever since I moved to my house in '88. Moved into Concord Township in '75, so probably longer in the township than many people maybe here are. Anyhow, regarding the cul-de-sac, I'm a little disappointed Anthony didn't remember that I had a nice conversation with him and did contact him. And our take is this, all right? We are not trying to disturb anybody's lifestyle. We're not disturbed that's not our intent. I told him if there's any way if we could leave the temporary cul-de-sac, if they would allow that to be in there, we're happy to have it slow down. I'd even volunteer to make it a cul-de-sac where it wouldn't even connect. If the Lake County Plan would go through it, they have their rules. We don't set the rules. If the township trustees or somebody would like to talk to the Planning Commission and make that, we're more than happy to go on. You're our neighbors. Believe me, we've been there, I think, longer than Bill's family, I think. And we bought our property within pages when we developed that, okay? Regarding the lights, I heard a lot of things about the lights. I'm gonna go on record for our family saying, and this is a family operation, as you probably know, we will eliminate the lights. If it's allowable in the township, we'll eliminate it. If that makes the people around there happy, we would be happy to do that. In fact, I've heard a lot of complaints, and again, we're not an antagonistic person or company. We've been part of the community a very, very long time. I've been living there since 46 years, all right? The number of lots, and I heard someone, how can you build on them? I don't know how many, Mr. Repper, you probably build a lot of houses. We build over 1,000. There's not one lot on the layout which is difficult to build. A. B, to think we threw together a little plan and just threw it out there. We actually entered in a contract, I believe, on the first property in September. Maybe Mr. Loxley can verify that. I can tell you, just in planning and layouts, we have over 30,000. And in planning of the overall thing, we have over 100,000 invested. It's none of your concern. It has nothing to do with you. We're not saying we did what we did. We're doing this And I'll tell you the main reason I'm doing this, because I said, why would I want to do a development like this? I want to tell you two reasons. Number one, we've been building, as I said, for over 40 years. We built and developed over 1,000 properties in the area, all right? And for the last 15 years, I have a lot of friends and people, because basically people we built for became our friends. Unlike many builders that they don't talk to their builders, we have a lot of people. The one that didn't like our family and become part of the family was the unusual one, okay? So what I would say is this, and Mike knows that. In fact, we went through this 20 years ago putting in summer where they wanted 1 acre lots, which had been clear cut with septics. We donated 59 acres of Concord Township open area, and say we were told we weren't the conservative ones. The ones that all ripped down the trees were the conservative ones. That said, worrying about expanding the open area, you're looking at people not as necessarily a retirement community, because it's not that kind of a neighborhood. This is going to be kind of a legacy, and it's like my backyard, honestly. It's going to be a legacy in that anybody that wants to remain in the township, downsize, go into an active area, moving into a brand new neighborhood like they did in Summerwood, where everyone became neighbors, all moved in together. Everyone that's from different ages can come in and move in to a neighborhood they can enjoy, maintenance-free, and be able to go to winters in Florida, come back in the summers here, and not worry about the property. Why do we need a smaller lot? Well, if we did it at larger lots, the maintenance factor would be cost prohibitive potentially for the people moving into the neighborhood. The smaller lots are conducive, which is why we went with Epcon. Epcon's been developing, and you know, if anyone here knows us and knows me, would know that we could probably, I'd say we could do as well laying out and getting house styles as they did. They've already done it, and we decided to get into this thing with them only for it's not only the benefit of the, it's really a need. I mean, many people are becoming older. Nobody in this room, but many people are getting older, all right? Those of you that are younger, one day you're gonna get older, all right? So it's gonna represent for the people, for posterity, an area of a very unusual area, dedicated kind of, not exclusively because you can't discriminate, for people that want to have full maintenance-free living and a lifestyle. It's a different lifestyle, all right? The other thing is, and could we develop our one? We could not develop for all the people that want to live in that kind of area. It won't work. But I can tell you what will happen. Lake County Planning has already approved the plan. You talked to Dave Radacci, I'm sure, all right? There's got to be a connection from that street somewhere. This connection is going to go on to Morley Road. So if you're worried about all the traffic coming down Hobby Horse, which I heard you have, all the accidents, if we were to put an R1 filter to connect your road back to Morley, which is where it shows on, that's where it goes, where are all the people that exit to get on the Button Road? Every one of them's going to come through your neighborhood. Now, and I think I talked to Tony, I told him also, I don't know anybody in his right mind, unless he got a little confused, that would leave that neighborhood, drive through your neighborhood, go all the way down Hobby Horse to get back to Hoos. Much closer coming through this one. My guess is that you didn't disagree. Some of you will be coming through there just to get it because it's closer, potentially. And further away from Button Road, and a little probably a safer outlet. And now you have a double outlet to come out of. So, what else? And again, we don't want to fight with anybody. I don't know how many people are going to have a cemetery in the neighborhood. I thought state law kind of said if it's an abandoned, not being used, unless we dedicate a lawyer to build, make some more funeral home there. But I'm not sure why trustees would not, other than maybe trying to defend somebody here. I don't know who here wants to live by a cemetery. We are, it's actually a state. I understand. I haven't read the law. I know Tony Aveni, who's an esteemed attorney out here, researched it. He said there is state law saying if there's no further burials going to happen in a cemetery in the township, that the township is supposed to declare it, I think, abandoned, and then they just make a resolution, which I thought was in the process, and then they actually pay to move it, they assume it, and what remains and put them in a cemetery so that people could actually come visit their relatives rather than walking through somebody's property, which Bill told me 30 years ago somebody did. Like last time somebody been there, the last burial there was like 1850. I've been told there's nothing there. You go dig it up, but it'll still be respectfully done in a normal manner. So why they would want, why anybody would want to have a cemetery in the middle of a neighborhood, I don't know. The neighbor's going to go in. The development is going to be done. Right? Those I heard somebody say, and Ms. Kilfoyle, I think, worried about how, well, if the half acre was, you're going to have housing right behind it. It'll be clean. It'll be cleared out, and you'll have a house looking at it. There will be no open area which benefits you. Someone asked, and I think on the audience, why there was not an open area to the north of the patriarchal property. Well, we want to avoid that wetlands. And to stay away from that, you have to move in some direction. If the township allowed smaller lots, which I think Jeff discussed with a conservation group, and I think if they allowed that, well, then we could shift it further down and make open area there, which is our original intent, but we wanted to keep everything away from the open area. So, in closing, and I don't know who else, you may have questions for the engineers, all right? Having a 3 or 4 or 5 foot deep pond that's already silted in 2 or 3 feet over the roof because it's never been cleaned out. It's nothing there. We're dredging and we're redoing a retention on that, and if you look down on our neighborhood where I live, in Ascot Farms, we're totally redoing that now. You'll see all the silt and everything we threw out and cast out to put all solid material. So if you think, Mr. Reppert, that at any point in time, I would build a property that wouldn't be solid and safe. You don't even know us. You don't know our reputation. We don't do that. If there's a way of doing it better, we always took that way. But we still continue to improve. All right? So, and I don't know if you have any other questions. I mean, I don't know what else I might be. I'll answer again. We'll forego the lights. The community's going to come in, but picture everybody living in that community driving through your neighborhood now, instead of coming out the other way. And that's really good. I'm not threatening, I'm just saying what it is. And also, you're going to get rid of a need, a real need in the neighborhood. Everyone here is going to get to the age that they're going to want to live in one potential. Not everybody, but I have so many friends that already moved out of it. I think you got one in from the pharmacist. There's people moving to Chardon Township just to find houses on slabs, and a lot of these houses are going to be on slabs also. All right, which makes even a little less maintenance for the homeowner. So we have Florida. That's all you have is slabs. We don't have it here for some reason. But
You gotta have a place to put your stuff down.
That's it. Well, you know what? Instead of basements, what they do, they have a thing. They build them up.
Right.
So they finish it up for finish area there. So it's really an ideal kind of a community. I mean, he hasn't spoken much to it. I don't want you to take the idea that you think we're being defensive. What we're doing, we're really going through a lot of exercise. So, anyhow, I want to thank you. I hope some of you understand where we're coming from. We're not out to hurt anybody. I think the engineer can tell you that if there's a lot of water discharging, you quite possibly result you'll have less, not more. All right. Because everything's being diverted straight through. I presume, is that correct? Am I correct or am I incorrect? More than likely, it improves. It doesn't get worse. So, and I understand everyone has concerns. I mean, you've been there for anywhere something from 5 to 20 years, or so much more. Some of the old guys. But other than that, all I can say is we're a good neighbor. We've always been a good neighbor. If you go through Summerwood, that I had hundreds of people out in arms going after that one. Go through that neighborhood, so you can see a nicer subdivision in Concord Township. And we'd like to do the same thing in this area.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
And I appreciate all your
comments. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Can we get a couple of comments addressed that haven't been addressed?
I'm sorry?
Can we get a couple more comments that haven't been addressed?
No, we've already closed the public portion. I'm sorry. Thank you. Hope you understand. We do have 2 letters from the Lake County Planning Commission that I want to put on the record, both dated May 26th. One is specifically regarding, they're both from Dave Radishy, who's titled secretary. It's regarding the district amendment rezoning 34.2428 acres from R1 to R2 RCD and the text amendments. So in his comments, the Lake County Planning Commission took under consideration the above mentioned district and zoning text changes at their regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, May 25th of 2021. The Lake County Planning Commission recommended that the district amendment be made as well as the text amendments with the following comments and recommendation. Bullet point 1, recommend rezoning the 34.2428 acres from R1 residential to R2 RCD residential conservation district. It is believed the property in question would be better developed as an RCD rather than a conventional R1 zoning district in order to preserve open space and sensitive areas following the township's comprehensive plan from 2004. Then he goes on in the second bullet point to address the amendments to the zoning text. Then in another letter memorandum from the Lake County Planning Commission from David Radish, Planning Director, he said, I've reviewed, this is in regards to review of villas at Canterwood Estates for subdivision compliance. I reviewed the layout of the proposed RCD. It meets Lake County subdivision regulations in regards to connecting the roads that were created to provide circulation to undeveloped property, block lengths, cul-de-sac lengths, intersecting with existing roads. And then if there are some issues with the plan, bullet point 1, west cul-de-sac has an island in the middle and the east cul-de-sac is all pavement. Bullet point number 2, the right-of-way diameter of the west cul-de-sac is too large per the subdivision regulations. It has a diameter of 150 feet and max diameter is 130 feet. The proposal created a landlocked parcel, block A. This will need to be addressed. Last bullet point, Cambridge Court may not be available to use. There is a Cambridge Park in Menor and Cambridge in Painesville and Willoughby Hills. So the name has to change. Staff had some concerns with having sublots 57, 58, and 59 accessing Hoos Road. 3 sublots are disconnected from the rest of the subdivision. The owners may end up driving to the clubhouse instead of walking. They would have a front setback of 30 feet, while the rest of Hoos Road has a 50-foot setback. This would put the homes closer to Hoos Road than the rest of the houses on the street. So, this is memorandums. I'd like those entered into the record. Any comments from the Zoning Commission at this point? Hiram?
None.
Ashley?
None.
Frank?
No, I heard enough.
Okay. I'd like to just address a couple things. I know there were some items that were brought up from many of the residents with regards to the temporary cul-de-sac that is on Canterwood Trail. I understand the consternation that creates when we're looking at pushing a street through, but as a rule of thumb, when you buy a house on a street and there's woods at the end of the street, it's not a cul-de-sac, it's a stub street, okay? You can create a big circle and you can let the kids play there all you want, but at the end of the day, if there are no homes at the end of the street, it's not a cul-de-sac, it's a stub street. And that's designed that way. At some point in time in the future, there's going to be a street that's going to be cut through, and it's going to join to another parcel of property. It's going to be for access. And we went through this same exact issue on Keystone not that long ago. Keystone Ridge had an issue where they had at the end of the road, it was a stub street that went into Nancy Ann and the rest of the development behind them, but they basically opened it up and kind of created a cul-de-sac out of it, and it was that way for a number of years. But it wasn't a cul-de-sac. It doesn't fit the legal description of a cul-de-sac. It's a stub street, and you have to understand that. And I know that's difficult because it was there and that's the way it was, but unfortunately, if there's no houses at the end of the street to prevent a road from going through, that means it's not a cul-de-sac. If there were homes there, then it's a cul-de-sac, but otherwise it's a stub street, and at some point in time, whether it's in 1955 or it's in 2022 or 21, it's going to be a street. It's going to be a through street. And unfortunately, that's the way the rules operate. And I understand why people would be concerned about that, but that doesn't make developing it into a cul-de-sac make it a cul-de-sac. It's still a stub street, and at some point in time it's going to go through, and you have to understand that. And I'm sorry that happens, but it does. And it's not the first time this has occurred in the township, and this, you know, that this has happened. So, and I think it's, and I kind of covered this when we talked about the intention behind the RCD and the R1. You know, I understand that nobody likes to see development, especially when it is directly impacting your properties, when there's a big parcel of property that's going to be developed. And I understand it's a problem, and it creates a lot of angst. But unfortunately, you know, with the way that we have things set up in the township, this gives us an opportunity to sit down and actually steer the developer in a direction we would like them to go, versus the developer just coming in and just putting in a traditional R1 development. And I guess when you leave here tonight, you have to ask yourself, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a development that enables you an opportunity to give some input and have some open and true, honest discussions with the developer, and maybe have an impact on some final decisions that are made? Or do you want to just get a traditional R1 development and get what you get, and whether you're happy with it or not? And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as this is an opportunity, because you know what, the property's going to be developed. Okay, whether you like it or not, it's going to be developed. Unless you want to all pull your funds together and buy it outright, maybe you can do that and you can leave it as a horse farm. I don't know. But that's usually not a realistic outcome to these kind of situations. So the alternative is to basically try to have some input, take an approach of, okay, it's going to be developed, so maybe now we have an opportunity to put some input into how it goes and the way it looks and some of the things that are done. And there's some things I'd like to see. I would like to see, you know, even though it's not a part of our zoning text at this point in time, I would really like to see the two lots that are buffering the existing Canterwood Trail property, lots 24 and I think, what is it, 24 and 25. I'd like to see those lots eliminated. I would like to see a buffer. I would like to see some open space between the transition from Canterwood Trail as it sits today and the new development that's going in. I would love to see those lots just left as open space. Now, I know it's a sacrifice of two lots, and I understand that costs money, and that's important. But we're also transitioning into from an existing development of people that have owned homes for decades into a new development. And it would be nice to have a little bit of separation there. Now, does that mean that we have to completely eliminate those lots? I don't know. Maybe we can, you did design them bigger so that we could put traditional lots, or traditional homes on those two lots, actually 3 lots there. Maybe we could rearrange them a little bit, shorten them up, and at least put some sort of separation between the existing homes that are on Canterwood Trail moving into the new development. I think overall, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great plan. I think there's a lot of positives that can be derived from this. I've been in the township for a long time. I've had experience with the Rcd family and doing developments. They do quality work. You can't deny that. And I believe Tom when he says that he wants to be a good neighbor. And I believe that he's trying to put together what he feels is in the best interest of the community here. And I hope that this is all going to turn out the way that we think it will. And you know, and quite frankly, with regards to a lot of the water movement and things that go on, believe it or not, sometimes developments actually address some of those issues and correct some of the water problems. They don't always create more problems. Sometimes they actually, through the development and the grading and the things that go on with the retention ponds and things that happen, it actually improves the water situations that are out there, and it takes away some of the issues that are going on, some of the concerns that people have. Not to say that that's guaranteed to happen. That's not a guaranteed outcome. We really don't know. When I moved into my home in Summerwood, you know, I was I think the second house in, and you know, we had no issues. We had no problems with water. We had, you know, it was a pretty straightforward, you know, situation. Then they started building down Summerwood, and the people that moved into those houses on Summerwood, they put French drains with pop-ups in the back of their lots, and they took the rain out of their gutters and they piped it through to the back of their lots. And that water, all of a sudden, I have a lake now that sits between my house and my storage barn. It's literally, you can walk in there, you have to wear your waders to go in. And that was never there before those houses were developed and those people put those French drains in with those pop-ups. What can I do about it? Nothing. I deal with it. You know what I did? I had a French drain put in. I had a guy come out, an excavation company, and they dug a trench and they put in a French drain and drained the water out of that lake towards the street. And now I don't have the water issue that I used to have. So, you know, sometimes things happen, and I don't think the neighbors that put those pop-up drains, they didn't do that with the intent to flood my backyard. They didn't. They were just trying to deal with water on their property, and unfortunately, it ended up coming my way. But those are the things that happen, and I understand people have concerns about that, and there's no doubt that water creates a lot of those issues, and we are putting in driveways, and we're putting in roofs, and there's impervious surfaces, and all sorts of things that are going to happen, and I just hope that. You know, that's the reason why they spend the money that they do to do the engineering work and the studies and looking at the grades and all that stuff, and they try to do the best that they can to avoid, you know, putting those types of things and putting your property values in peril. So I hope that the Rcd family will follow through with that and do the things that they say they're going to do. I don't really have much of a concern on the lakes. I mean, the two ponds. I mean, they were man-made. They weren't there before, and they're not going to be there now. So what? They're going to go away, and that's just the way it is. And they're going to replace it with, you know, hopefully with materials that are going to make it buildable, and people aren't going to have issues. So, but that, you know, I think there's a lot of positives with this development. I think there's, if we looked at the RCD, at the yield plan, and the way the R1 was put in, I think we'd have a lot more issues we'd be dealing with, folks. I think we'd have a lot more issues. I really do. And I think this is a good solution for us. So, with that comments, anybody else have any other comments?
No, sir.
Byron? No. Ashley, Frank, any other comments?
I was just going to build on it that, you know, the reason we have public hearings is not only for you people to be here to give us your input, but also developers themselves want to be here and hear your input, because from here, it's going to go to the trustees. And many times as a good developer, hearing what their concerns are, try to address it for when they have the hearing with the trustees. So that might be taken care of when you people have and go to the hearing that the trustees will have. So look at that as a positive. That's all I want to say.
The door, you know, this is not a final decision. Okay, this what we decide tonight, whether it's in favor of or opposed to, this is not a final decision. There will be another public hearing with the trustees after this. You'll have an opportunity to come in, and and between those two times, there's time, I think, for you to get together and request an audience with the developers if you have some additional ideas or things that you would like to see. I think it's a good opportunity to have dialogue. Conversations, meetings, dialogue is what's important. It's not, you know, to just kind of shut the door and turn our backs and not have a dialogue is a mistake. There's an opportunity here between now and the trustees meeting to have some further conversations, and I think it's a good opportunity for everybody to get their concerns laid out and have those issues addressed. And I would encourage you to do that. I don't think that the Reeves and the developers they're not difficult people. They're not going to deny you the opportunity to sit down and chat. And I know they wouldn't be here tonight if they didn't want. They wouldn't put themselves through this if they didn't feel this was a good idea. Because this is a voluntary thing that they're doing. They didn't have to do this. They could have just went to the Lake County Planning Commission with an R1 development and put it in. And that would have been the end of it. So I think the fact that they put themselves through this and put themselves out there and allow people to make the comments that they do, I think there's a lot of value to this process. I really do. And I'm glad that you all came here tonight to make these comments for us to listen to. So, with that said, I would like to close the public hearing. So we'll consider this hearing closed. Okay. We can vote tonight if I get I would like to entertain a motion in the affirmative, and then we can vote this evening if you would like to do that.
Frank.
The motion must be in the affirmative.
Go ahead. You speak louder than I do.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the yield plan and the overall preliminary plan for Canterwood Estates or whatever. Canterwood Estates? Canterwood Villas.
If I may make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
To assist in the motion. If you just look at enumerated 2 of the agenda, it describes what is subject to the approval at the
Right.
beginning of it. So it would be my suggestion to simply say, motion to approve the zoning amendment application 2021-1, et cetera, requesting a zoning resolution map amendment, which was not made in the motion, and
Right.
the preliminary plan approval. Just a suggestion.
Ira, would you like to take another stab at that?
I'll do so. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve zoning amendment application number 2021-1 by ALM Lake Properties LLC requesting a zoning resolution map amendment and preliminary plan approval for the current zoning district of R1 residential to R2 residential conservation development.
Okay, I have a motion made. Second.
I second.
Frank seconds. We have a motion made and seconded. Heather, would you like to call the roll?
Ms. Garkar?
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
And Mr. Langenfelter?
Yes. I have 4 yeas, no nays, no abstentions. The preliminary plan approval has been granted.
Well, it's been recommended.
Recommended.
It's been recommended.
Yeah, recommended, I should say. Been recommended. Pardon me?
We're still there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We'll take a brief recess while the room clears. Thank you for stopping in. Pardon me? Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Now, was Sari and Fred related to you?
Yes.
Who were they?
Fred is my cousin.
Okay, all right. Okay, because I worked with, when I was involved with the Concord Leroy Painesville baseball league, and I knew Fred and Sari very well. They were involved with the league long before I got involved. And Fred was just a tremendous guy. And Sari
Good job.
Okay, we're good. Yes, thank
I'll
you for
touch base
stopping
with
in.
you when the trustee is.
Okay, we're gonna get started again. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, you take it easy, all right? Okay. We're going to reconvene now that the room is empty. We still have a couple things left on the agenda this evening. I think we can, we'll slide the work session for possible zoning text amendments related to residential conservation development district and outside dining. We'll move that because it's, you know, we're already at 10:30 and I'd like to try to get home here at a reasonable time.
Keep going.
Can we just plow through it, Mike? We
You
can
know-
do it. We can do it.
You know, this isn't an easy job. I don't know if you've heard that.
All right, so we'll slide the item number 3 on the agenda, the work session. We'll slide that to next month's zoning meeting, regularly scheduled zoning meeting. We'll pick that up then because we definitely have some more discussion to do on that. We've got some more work to do, so we'll move that to next month. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, approval of the minutes of the May 4th zoning commission meeting. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the May 4th minutes
Whoa,
for the zoning commission from May 4th, 2021.
jumping in. Good for you.
As written.
As written, no less. Okay.
Yes.
I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Item number 5, correspondence report by the zoning commission members. Hiram, any comments?
I've had no contact whatsoever.
Okay. Ashley?
None.
Frank?
None, Mr. Chairman.
No? I had a couple phone calls regarding the issue that was in front of us this evening, but nothing of any major consequence. Just a couple residents calling up to ask a few questions, voice a couple of concerns, but nothing other than that. So, other than that, nothing for me. Audience participation. They all left. They had their participation for tonight. I guess they got their fill. Morgan, did you want to say something? All right. The next meeting of the zoning commission will be July 6th.
Jeez, July.
And if there's nothing new that we need to discuss or any additional things to be put on the agenda, we will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your hard efforts.